Preface: this book will enable you to stop using pornography immediately, painlessly, and permanently without willpower or any sense of deprivation or sacrifice. It won't place any judgment, embarrassment, or pressure to undergo painful treatment measures. Neither will it leave you with a routine or list of tasks that you need to perform for the next 90 days, or worse, the rest of your life. Perhaps this goes against everything you've been told, but ask yourself, has what you've been told worked? If it had, you wouldn't be reading this. Pornographic addiction manifests in various ways with far-reaching societal effects. Billions of people use pornography. The internet allows instantaneous access to something we will call supernormal stimulus. Consider if the following questions apply to you. Do you spend far more time viewing porn than you originally intended? Are you unsuccessful in efforts to stop or limit your consumption of pornography? Has time spent viewing pornography interfered with or taken precedence over personal and professional commitments, hobbies, and relationships? Do you go out of your way to keep your pornography consumption secret? Deleting browser history, closing the door to your bedroom, lying about viewing porn. Has viewing pornography caused problems in your intimate relationship? Do you experience a cycle of arousal and enjoyment before and during pornography consumption, followed by feelings of shame, guilt, and remorse after? Do you spend time thinking about pornography, even when not watching it? Do you dream about pornographic scenes that you've witnessed? Has viewing pornography otherwise caused any other negative consequences in your personal or professional life? Missed work, poor performance, neglected relationships, financial problems. If you're a porn user who wants to quit, has tried to quit and failed, all you need to do is read on. If you're a non-addict coming here for a loved one, all you need to do is persuade them to read this book. If you are unable to persuade them, read the book yourself. Understanding this method will help you get the message across. You can use it to prevent your children from getting addicted to porn in the first place and save years of their lives. Don't be unconcerned by the fact they don't have access to it now. All do before becoming hooked. In 2010, the average child's first exposure to porn was at only 11 years of age. 1.1 Warning: perhaps you're feeling uneasy about reading this book. Perhaps, like many porn users, the very thought of quitting pornography forever fills you with panic and, although you have every intention of quitting one day, that day isn't today. Wait. Relax. If you're expecting this book to scare you into quitting by detailing the various health issues involved with pornography addiction, such as porn-induced erectile dysfunction, unreliable libido, lack of interest in real partners, hypofrontality, loss of relationships, and the blinding accusations that this is a filthy, disgusting habit and you are a stupid, spineless, weak-willed jellyfish, you'll be disappointed. Those tactics never helped me quit, and if they were going to help you, you would have quit already. This method doesn't work that way. Some of the things about to be said may be difficult to believe, but by the time you've finished this book you'll not only believe them, but wonder how you could have ever been brainwashed into believing otherwise. There is a common misconception, which is that porn addicts choose to watch porn. Porn addicts, yes, addicts, no more choose to watch porn than alcoholics choose to become alcoholics, or heroin addicts choose to become heroin addicts. It is true that we choose to turn on the laptop or smartphone, open the browser and visit our favorite porn sites. Occasionally I choose to go see a movie, but I certainly didn't choose to spend my whole life at the theater. Originally, curiosity and human nature took me there, but I wouldn't have gone even once had I known I'd become addicted, causing the decline of my health, happiness, and relationships. If only I'd heard about porn-induced erectile dysfunction on my first visit to that porn site. Take a moment to reflect. Did you ever make the decision that you will always depend on porn to masturbate? That you must have porn-induced fantasies to spice up sex with your partner? That at certain times in your life, you won't be able to enjoy a good night's sleep or relax after a hard day at work without searching for porn? That you won't be able to concentrate or handle stress without using porn? 8. At what point in life did you decide that you will need porn in your life permanently, and that you will feel insecure, even panic-stricken without your regular fix? Along with every other porn user, you've been lured into one of the most sinister yet subtle traps that man and nature have mutually devised. There's not a person alive, whether they're a porn user themselves or not, who enjoys the thought of their children using porn to cope with life and obtain pleasure. Therefore, every addict wishes they'd never started, which is unsurprising because no one needs porn to enjoy life or to cope with stress before becoming addicted. However, every addict also wishes to continue their addiction. After all, no one forces us to open internet browsers in incognito mode, whether we understand the reason or not. Fundamentally, it's the porn users themselves that decide to knock on the door of their addiction. If there was a magic button that every porn addict could press right now to wake up tomorrow as if they'd never accessed their first porn site, the only people using porn tomorrow would be young people still experimenting. The only thing that prevents us from quitting is fear relating to the belief that we must survive an indeterminate period of misery, deprivation, and unsatisfied craving in order to be free from porn. This misunderstanding comes from acquiring beliefs such as, masturbation or sex leading to orgasm is the most important thing in life due to lack of rejection, porn is safer than real-life sex, porn is educative and useful, being entitled to a superior sexual experience more is always better. These irrational beliefs create illogical behaviors when acted upon, including, worshipping and obsessing when a perfect 10 is found, perceiving yourself as a loser if you miss out on sex, as it's the most important factor in human experience, holding out for a perfect 10, judgmental and critical of prospective men or women, the mind forcing the body to have sex even when it says no. It is the belief that a night all by yourself will be miserable, the entire time spent fighting overpowering impulses. It is the belief that the night before exams will be a night full of intense stress without porn. It is the belief that we'll never be able to concentrate, handle pressure or be confident without our coping mechanism. 9. It is the belief if we quit porn forever, our personality, character, and ability to be a fun person will change for the worse. But most of all, we fear that once an addict, always an addict, we'll spend the rest of our lives never completely free from the trap, at odd times craving the occasional porn-induced orgasm. If, as I did, you've already tried the conventional ways of quitting and been through the misery and torture of the willpower method, you'll not only be affected by that fear, but convinced you can never quit too. If you're apprehensive, panic-stricken, or feel that the time is not right for you to quit porn, let me assure you, this is caused by fear, which rather than being relieved by porn, is created by it. You didn't decide to fall into the porn trap, but like all traps, it's designed to ensure you remain trapped. Ask yourself, when you viewed those first porn pictures and videos, did you decide to come back to view them for as long as you live? So, when will you quit? Tomorrow? Next year? Stop kidding yourself. This trap is designed to hold you for life. Why else do you think all the other addicts don't quit before it ruins their lives? As you'll soon find out in this book, the effectiveness of this method has exceeded my wildest expectations. It's also revealed two aspects of the method that have caused concern. I've alluded to a magic button. This method works just like that magic button. Let's be clear, it isn't magic, but for myself and others who've found it so easy and enjoyable to quit, it seems like it. Therefore, before you read the rest of the book, I must warn you, this is a chicken and egg situation. Every addict wishes they could simply quit. Only fear prevents porn users from quitting. The key is getting rid of the fear. But you won't be free from the fear until you complete this book. In fact, your fear might increase as you continue reading, which might prevent you from finishing it. You must press on to the end. Take this comment from another reader: I've just finished reading. I know that it's only been 4 days, but I feel great. I know that I'll never need to use porn again. I first started to read the book 5 months ago, got halfway through, but I panicked. I knew that if I went on reading, I would have to quit porn. You didn't decide to fall into the porn trap, but you won't escape from it unless you make the positive decision to do so. You might think you don't have a problem, that you aren't an addict and you can quit whenever you want, or at least feel uneasy about the thought of quitting porn forever, but consider this: you have nothing to lose. 10. If at the end of the book you decide that you wish to continue to use porn, there's nothing to prevent you from doing so. You don't even have to cut down or stop using porn while you're reading the book. Remember, this isn't a shock treatment. On the contrary, I have only good news for you. Can you imagine how Andy Dufresne felt when he finally escaped from Shawshank Prison? That's how I felt when I escaped from the porn trap. That's how the ex-porn users who've used this method feel. By the end of the book, that's how you'll feel. Go for it. 11. Chapter 2 Introduction. This method will cure porn addiction. Perhaps you find it impossible to believe that any porn user can find it easy and enjoyable to quit. If so, continue reading. This method has worked just as effectively for others as it has for me. This method is adapted from Alan Carr's smoking clinics, where if a smoker fails to quit, it's regarded as the clinic's failure to convince them. Similarly, when a porn user uses this method but doesn't quit, it's a mistake to regard it as their failure. Alan's clinics have money-back guarantees with success rates over 95%. The method described in this book is instantaneous, equally as effective for the heavy and casual user alike, causes no bad withdrawal symptoms, needs no willpower, requires no shock treatment, tools or gimmicks, won't cause you to replace this addiction with other addictions, such as overeating, smoking, or drinking permanent. This book will give you the correct sequence to unlock the combination lock of porn addiction. You only have to use the numbers in the correct order. Simply put, start at the beginning and read all the way through without skipping chapters and jumping around the book. Conventional ways of quitting porn advocate the heavy use of willpower or substitution methods such as porn diets and cutting down consumption. People attempting to quit porn using willpower try to see how long they can hold out, counting the days feverishly until they finally give in and consider themselves failures for using porn. Substitution methods have porn users practice behavior patterns and mantras to distract them from their impulses. Both of these methods are equally ineffective, as they don't actually remove the reasons for using porn. Turning a substance into a forbidden fruit by making it against the rules to use it is an ineffective way to treat an addiction. 12. Many websites go into detail about effects of porn on the brain, with testimonies backed up by peer-reviewed research about neurotransmitters and neuroplasticity. While these sites are informative, many are aware of the dangers of porn-induced erectile dysfunction and its highly addictive nature, yet choose to do nothing about their addiction. Porn users, young and old, tend to avoid such material regardless, feeling safe in the knowledge that one look at a porn site won't kill them. With more adolescents becoming addicted than ever before, it's clear that this knowledge isn't enough. The method in this book isn't just another method, but the only sensible method to use. But it wouldn't be fair for you to believe me yet. Save judgment until you finish this book. Ultimately, the best indicators are the comments received from real porn users. I didn't believe the claims you made and apologize for doubting you. It was just as easy and enjoyable as you said it would be. I've shared the link to your book to some of my friends, but I can't understand why they don't read it. I was forwarded the link to your book 8 months ago by a friend. I've just gotten around to reading it. My only regret is wasting 8 months. Even the comparatively few failures typically say something along the lines of, I haven't succeeded yet, but this way is better than any I know. Everyone can find it easy to quit porn, including you. All you have to do is read the rest of this book with an open mind. The more you understand, the easier it will be. Even if you don't understand every word, provided you follow the instructions, you'll find it easy. Most importantly, you won't go through life moping for porn or feeling deprived. By the end of book, the only mystery will be why you waited so long. With this method, there are only 2 reasons for failure. Failure to carry out instructions. Some may find it bothersome that this book is assertive about certain recommendations, such as not trying cutting down on porn usage or using distraction techniques. I don't deny that many people have succeeded in quitting porn by using such ruses, but they've succeeded in spite of and not because of them. There are some people that can make love standing in a hammock, but it isn't the easiest way. The numbers for opening the porn trap's lock are in this book, but they need to be used in the correct order, going from one chapter to the next and not skipping chapters. 13. Failure to understand. Don't take anything for granted. Question not only what you're told but also your own views and what society has told you about sex, internet porn, and addiction. For example, for those who believe compulsive porn use is just a habit, ask yourself why other habits, some being enjoyable, are easy to break, while a habit like pornography usage, which feels awful, costs energy, time, and virility, is so difficult to quit. To those who believe you enjoy porn, ask yourself, why other things in life which are infinitely more enjoyable, are freely up to you to either take or leave. Why do you need to have porn? Why do you feel panic setting in at the thought of never having it again for the rest of your life? This method will teach you how easy and enjoyable it is to quit porn. Like many others, one of my greatest triumphs in life has been escaping the porn trap. There is no need to feel depressed. On the contrary, you're about to accomplish something every user on the planet would love to achieve: freedom. 14. Chapter 3. Why is it difficult to quit? All porn addicts start out thinking, I will quit porn eventually, just not today. This eventually leads to the first attempt to quit, which fails. Then we start thinking we don't have enough willpower to quit, or that there is something in porn that we must have to enjoy life. Porn addiction can be compared to clawing your way out of a slippery pit. As soon as you feel that you're near the top and can see the sunshine for the first time, you find yourself slipping back down as soon as your mood declines, eventually opening your browser and feeling awful as you masturbate, trying to understand why you need it so much. Ask any porn user, if you could go back in time to before you became addicted, with the knowledge you have now, would you start using porn? No way, would be the reply. Say to the most addicted porn user, someone defending internet porn who doesn't believe it is a harmful activity, would you encourage your children to use porn? No way, would be the reply. Porn is an extraordinary substance. The problem isn't explaining why it's easy to stop, it is explaining why it's difficult. It's hard to explain why anyone still uses porn even after learning the insights on the neurological damage it causes. Part of the reason we start using porn is because of the tens of millions of people who are already into it. But every porn addict wishes they hadn't started in the first place, and their testimonies are all over the internet, telling us that a life lived with porn addiction is like living life in second gear. We associate porn with freedom or being sex educated, and will work hard to become addicted when we're young and curious, but we'll spend the rest of our lives telling others not to start and trying to quit the addiction ourselves. We spend significant amounts of time feeling hopeless and miserable while medicating ourselves with the superstimulant that makes us prefer and thirst for cold images, even when real partners are available. We live our lives as slaves to our brain's dopamine excretions, which are induced by PMO, porn and masturbation, to orgasm, sentencing ourselves to a lifetime of irritability, anger, stress, fatigue, and porn-induced erectile dysfunction. We willingly choose porn to replace sex, readily giving up the best parts of sex like physical touch, embrace, voice, care, and affection, even though it will make us feel empty and guilty. Simply reading about internet pornography's addictive and destructive capabilities on the internet makes us more nervous and hopeless. What sort of terrible hobby is this? When you're doing it, you wish you weren't, and when you aren't, you crave for it even more. We despise ourselves when we read about hypofrontality and desensitization. We despise ourselves when we engage in PMO behind our trusting partners' backs and 15 are unable to get ourselves up to exercise after a daytime porn session. Porn users spend the lifetime of an otherwise intelligent and rational human in contempt, having to live with these awful black shadows in their minds. What do they get out of it? Absolutely nothing. You might be thinking, okay, so what? I know this, but once you're hooked on porn it's very difficult to stop. But why is it so difficult? Some say it's because of the powerful withdrawal symptoms, but as you'll come to learn, dopamine withdrawal symptoms are so mild, porn users have lived and died without ever realizing that they're addicts. Some say internet porn is free and humankind should claim this biological bonanza for pleasure, but this is untrue. Porn is addictive and acts like any other addictive drug. There are many harmful substances in existence which are readily available for anyone to use as much as they please, and much of them are natural, not artificial like internet porn. If a porn user who swears they only enjoy Playboy-esque softcore erotica was completely honest with you, they'd also tell you about all the times they've unwittingly crossed the line into hardcore, fetish, and abuse genres to feel the rush of dopamine a little more. The addict will always use unsafe porn and rationalize it rather than be left not using any pornography at all. Enjoyment has nothing to do with porn either. I enjoy eating lobster, but I never got to the stage where I needed to eat lobster multiple times a day or even once a day. With other things in life that we enjoy doing, we don't feel deprived and irritable when we're not doing them. Some say, it's educational. Education is meant to prepare you for situations out in the real world. When are you finally going to be prepared and ready to graduate? It's sexual satisfaction. Then why do you do it alone, preferring it to a real-life partner? It's a stress reliever. Porn won't remove the source of the stress, only add to it. Many believe porn relieves boredom, which is also a fallacy because boredom is merely a frame of mind. Porn taps into the part of your brain that chases after novelty, something new. This causes you to become increasingly bored with anything that doesn't give you the same level of stimulation that a new porn image or video can give you. Soon enough, you'll be on a wild goose chase, looking for just the right clip to hit your dopamine receptors, increasingly wiring your brain to seek out images and videos that evoke stronger and stronger emotion, increasing novelty and outrageous shock value. 16 Some porn addicts do it because their friends and everyone they know does it. Peer pressure. It's the same for many drug users, or at least how they got started using drugs. If this describes you, you'd better hope your friends don't start cutting their heads off to cure a headache. Most porn users who really think about it, come to the conclusion that it's just a habit, eliminating the usual explanations. Unfortunately, this explanation is equally illogical. Every day we change our daily habits and some of them are very enjoyable. We've been brainwashed to believe that using pornography is a habit and that habits in general are difficult to break. Are habits actually difficult to break? Drivers in the US have a habit of driving on the right side of the road, but when driving overseas, they break the habit with hardly any aggravation at all. Having bad posture is a habit, yet when people become self-aware and decide to improve their posture, they do it without nearly as much trouble as quitting porn. Cursing while speaking is a habit, but when someone needs to be polite, they can refrain from cursing relatively easily. It's clearly a fallacy that habits are hard to break. Then why do we find it difficult to break a habit that makes us feel deprived when we don't have it, guilty when we do, and is something we wish we could quit? Because porn isn't a habit, it's an addiction. That's why it appears to be so difficult to quit. Most porn users don't understand addiction. They believe they get some genuine pleasure or support from porn and believe they'll be making a genuine sacrifice if they quit. The beautiful truth is that once you understand the true nature of porn addiction and the reasons why you use it, you'll stop using it just like that. Within 3 weeks, the only mystery will be why you found it necessary to use porn as long as you have, and why you can't make other porn users understand how nice it is to be free. 17 Chapter 4 The Freedom Method. The objective of this book is to direct you into a new frame of mind. Instead of feeling like you're climbing Mt. Everest, enduring deprivation, overwhelming urges, and craving, we want to induce feelings of elation, as if cured of a terrible disease. The further you go through life, the more you'll look at this period of time and wonder why you had to look at porn in the first place, looking at your porn using friends with pity. Regardless of if you're a casual porn user, An ex-porn user who has quit, if you're in the fasting days of a porn diet, or a porn user attempting to quit porn, it is essential to remain exactly as you are until you've completely finished the book. Don't change anything. Just finish the book. This might appear to be a contradiction. The instruction to continue your normal behavior, even if it includes porn usage, causes more objections than any other part of this entire book. But there is a point to this. As you read, you may gain more motivation to quit porn. You may channel that motivation into another attempt to quit porn by using the willpower method, distraction techniques, or some other method you've tried and failed at. You must not change anything about your porn usage until you finish the book. Let the method work for you. If you read this book within the recommended time frame, you won't lose any time. As you go through the book, your desire to use porn will gradually be reduced. Just let it happen. Take this instruction seriously. Attempting to quit early will not benefit you. Many do not finish the book because they feel they have to give something up. Some even deliberately read only one line per day in order to postpone the end. But look at it this way, what have you got to lose? If you don't quit porn after reading the entire book, you're no more worse off than you are now. This is Pascal's wager, a bet placed where you have nothing to lose with only the possibility of large gains. Similarly, if you haven't watched porn for a few days or weeks, but aren't sure whether you're a porn user, ex-porn user, or not a porn user at all, then don't use porn while you read. To be clear, if you've decided to finish the book, you're already free from porn, but we have to let your brain catch up with your body. This method is the complete opposite of any other normal method. The normal method simply lists the considerable disadvantages of porn and say, if I can go long enough without porn, eventually the desire will go and I can enjoy life again, free of slavery. The method in this book is more logical, but let's make a few things clear. Quitting porn isn't the real problem. Every time you finish your porn session, you've stopped using porn. Right after you finish a porn session, you may have powerful reasons to say, I don't want to use porn or even masturbate anymore. All porn users feel this way, and their reasons are more powerful than you can possibly imagine. The real problem is on day 2, day 10, or day 10,000, when you have a moment of weakness and decide to have just one peek, quickly decide to have another, and suddenly you're an addict again. Awareness of the health risks generates more fear, making it more difficult to stop. When you tell a porn user that they're destroying their health and virility, and they will become stressed. How do porn addicts deal with stress? Yes, the first thing they'll do is reach for something to get their rush of dopamine, looking for an opportunity to be alone so they can open the internet browser to search for porn. Listing out all the reasons for quitting actually makes it harder. This is due to 2 reasons. First, it creates a story of deprivation. When we build a list of reasons why we should quit our addiction, we're basically forcing ourselves to give up something we want to keep. This mindset makes you believe you are losing something when you think about quitting. It makes you think of ways to rationalize your addiction, to be defensive about it, and to find ways to negotiate with yourself to keep some pleasure while still gaining freedom. Second, listing off the reasons we should quit creates solutions for things we aren't always looking for answers to. Quitting porn helps me build a business. What if I don't have a business? Quitting porn helps my social life. What if I don't want one? We don't use porn for the same reasons we should quit. It's usually not an apples to apples comparison. The real question is, why do we want or need to do it? With this method, we initially forget the reasons why we'd like to quit porn, instead facing the problem and asking ourselves the following questions: what is porn doing for me? Am I actually enjoying it? Do I actually need it? The beautiful truth is that porn does absolutely nothing for you whatsoever. To be clear, we aren't saying that the disadvantages of being a porn user outweigh the advantages. The fact is, there are 0 advantages to looking at internet porn. Most porn users find it necessary to rationalize why they use porn, but the reasons they come up with are all fallacies and illusions. By removing these, you'll come to understand that not only is there nothing to give up, but there are marvelous positive gains from being free from porn, well-being and happiness being two of the foremost. By eradicating the feelings of being deprived or missing out, we can go back to reconsider the many benefits of quitting. These realizations will become your guides, assisting you in achieving what you really desire, free from slavery to this addiction. 19 Chapter 5 The Sinister Trap. Internet porn is one of the most subtle and sinister traps man and nature have combined to devise. It is sinister because it doesn't require any work to fall into, it uses the natural functions of your normal brain. What gets us into the trap in the first place? Typically, free porn samples from amateurs and professionals who post their content on the internet. That's how the trap is sprung. Your first peek was at thumbnails on any of a million different porn pages, amateurish and homemade clips of unknown models. Most of the images aren't attractive at all, and some are outright disgusting. If the first-timer's gaze was filled only with angelic beauties and professional models, then alarm bells would ring. Due to the normal appearance of most of the models, our young minds are reassured we'll never become addicted, thinking that because we don't enjoy everything we see, we can stop whenever we want. Curiosity brings us closer to their doorsteps, but we dare not click on some thumbnails, fearing they'd make you ill. If you accidentally clicked on one, you'd try to get away from the page as soon as possible. We won't watch just anything, it has to be just the right content. Not too extreme, but extreme enough to stimulate us. We then spend the rest of our lives trying to understand why we do it, telling children not to start, and at odd times trying to escape. The trap is designed so that we try to quit only when something wakes us up: loss of sexual performance, loss of a career or relationship, shortage of sexual drive, or just feeling like garbage. But as soon as we quit, we have more stress. This is due to feelings of withdrawal, now that our favorite activity and coping mechanism to deal with stress has been removed. After a few days of torture, we come to the decision that we picked the wrong time to quit, deciding we'll wait for periods when life doesn't have as much stress, which, when it arrives, also removes our reason for quitting. Of course, the perfect time to quit will never arrive because for some reason which we can't understand, our lives tend to become more and more stressful. Leaving the protection of our parents, stresses such as jobs, homemaking, mortgages, babies, bigger houses and more babies crowd our lives and cause more stress than ever. However, this is an illusion. The truth is that the most stressful part of any creature's life is early childhood and adolescence. We tend to confuse responsibility and stress. A porn user's life, like a drug addict's, automatically becomes more stressful because porn doesn't relax you or relieve stress, as some try to make you believe. It's just the opposite. Porn causes you to become more stressed as you continue using it. As you can see, those waiting for a less stressful time to come along before they decide to quit porn will be waiting forever. It isn't life that's causing their stress levels to rise, it's the addiction. 20 Even porn users who quit, most do one or more times throughout their lives, can lead perfectly happy lives yet suddenly become addicted again. Wandering into the pornographic maze, our minds become hazy and we spend the rest of our lives trying to escape. Many succeed, only to fall into the sinister trap at a later date. Porn addiction is a complex and fascinating puzzle, much like a Rubik's Cube, practically impossible to solve. But if you have the solution, it's simple and fun. This method contains the solution to the puzzle, leading you out of the maze, never wandering in again, unless you choose to. All you have to do is follow the instructions. However, if you take a wrong turn, the rest of the instructions are pointless. Anyone can find it easy to quit porn, but first, some basic facts must be established. Not facts to scare you. There's already more than enough information out there. If that was going to make you quit, you'd have done so already. But why do we find it difficult to quit? Answering this requires us to know the real reason we're still using porn, boiling down to two factors. They are, nature and internet porn brainwashing. Porn users are intelligent, rational human beings. They know they're taking enormous risks, so they will spend a lot of time rationalizing their habit. But porn users know in their hearts that they're fools. They know they had no use for porn before becoming addicted. Most remember that their first peek at porn was a mix of disgust and novel curiosity. Over time, they started learning how to locate, filter, and bookmark their favorite sites, working hard to become addicted. All the while, non-addicts, the majority of women, older men, and people living in countries where high-speed internet porn is unavailable, aren't missing out on anything and find the entire situation laughable. By breaking down each of these factors in the next chapters, you too will understand the sinister trap and how to escape it. 21 Chapter 6 Nature. Internet porn is so addicting because it hijacks the brain's natural reward and pleasure-seeking mechanisms designed to keep you motivated in finding sexual partners. Internet porn's instant and highly accessible format keep the brain's natural reward mechanism producing dopamine significantly longer than would be possible naturally. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that encourages action, followed by feelings of pleasure produced by opiates. More dopamine, more action, more opiates, more feelings of pleasure. Without dopamine, actions such as eating wouldn't feel pleasurable. Foods high in fat and sugar produce higher dopamine release. Porn triggers a flood of dopamine, causing you to act, masturbating and orgasming, which triggers another flood of opiates. The brain is naturally incentivized to get as much dopamine as possible, because dopamine means action, and action means survival. The brain stores the massive dopamine hit obtained from using porn as a script for easy recall, strengthening neural pathways through the release of a chemical called delta FOSB. The brain calls up these pathways in response to prompts such as sexy commercials, being alone with your laptop or phone, feeling stressed, tired, or even just being bored. Suddenly you're being bombarded by your brain's signals telling you that it's time to watch more porn, masturbate, and get more dopamine. Every time this is repeated, more delta FOSB is released, so the signal becomes stronger, quicker, and more intense. The brain produces dopamine, but the only way you can feel the effects of dopamine is through receptors which also reside in the brain and take in the dopamine along with other neurotransmitters and brain chemicals. The brain also has a self-correcting system which limits the number of dopamine and opioid receptors when frequent and daily flooding of dopamine and opioids is detected. This correction system is necessary to prevent us from becoming completely sedated and overcome by pleasure so that we forget to even eat. Unfortunately, these receptors are also needed to keep us motivated to handle the daily stresses of life. The nominal amounts of dopamine produced by natural activities simply can't compare to that of the superstimulant of internet porn. Even worse, whatever amounts of dopamine are produced by natural activities also won't be as efficiently absorbed by the brain due to having decreased receptors. This leads you to feel more stressed and irritated than normal. This process is known as desensitization. In this cycle, you cross the line into more and more stimulating types of porn, trigger deeper feelings and emotions such as guilt, disgust, thrill, embarrassment, anxiety, and fear, which in turn raises dopamine 22 levels even higher and cause the brain to misinterpret these feelings as sexual arousal with orgasm as the natural reward. As time passes, not only is the brain desensitized to previously seen porn clips and images, but also similar porn genres and shock level. The same images and videos lack novelty, cause the brain to release less and less dopamine, lower motivation, and trigger feelings of lower satisfaction. Our brains are constantly rating the amount of dopamine stimulation each image and video provides, pushing you to find new content to satisfy the hunger. You're on a never-ending mission to find more novelty, clicking on the outrageous, shock-inducing videos and content you couldn't stomach at all when you first curiously looked at porn. A tiny moment of peace and security is all that's needed to get through a rough spot in life, but will your desensitized brain be able to catch that little drop of relief that a non-porn user's brain is able to use? For in the dew of little things the heart finds its morning and is refreshed, Khalil Gibran. Porn-induced dopamine flooding acts like a quick-acting drug. Dopamine levels decline quickly, inducing feelings of withdrawal. These are those empty, nervous, irritable feelings that make you think you are stressed and unable to relax. Many porn users have the illusion that withdrawal symptoms are a terrible trauma that they must suffer through when trying, or being forced, to quit. In fact, these withdrawal symptoms are just an illusion. The porn user is merely feeling deprived of their favorite pleasure and preferred coping mechanism. 6.1 The Little Monster. The actual pangs of withdrawal from porn are so subtle that most porn users have lived and died without realizing they're drug addicts. Many porn users would never use drugs, yet that's exactly what they're doing. The drug heroin also manipulates your brain's production of neurotransmitters and receptors to trigger feelings and emotions. Fortunately, porn is an easy drug to quit, but you first need to accept that you're addicted. Withdrawal from porn doesn't cause any physical pain and is merely an empty, restless feeling. As if something is missing. When prolonged, this feeling becomes nervousness, insecurity, agitation, low confidence, and irritability. It's like hunger, but for a poison. Within seconds of engaging in a porn session, dopamine is supplied and the craving ends, resulting in a feeling of fulfillment as you lose track of time and become completely absorbed into your addiction. In early days of porn usage, withdrawal pangs are so slight we're unaware of them. When we become regular porn users, we believe it's because we've come to enjoy it, or merely gotten into a little habit. The truth is, we're already hooked but don't realize it yet. The little monster is already in our brains, even if we only engage in porn sessions every once and a while to feed it. 23 Although the first few looks were probably out of genuine curiosity, eventually every porn user begins seeking porn for irrational reasons. There are several reasons why someone first looks at porn, but the only reason anyone continues using porn, whether they're a casual or heavy user, is because they must keep feeding that little monster in their brains. The whole situation is a series of cruel and confusing punishments, with perhaps the most pathetic aspect being the sense of enjoyment a user tries to derive from a porn session, attempting to get back to the sense of peace, tranquility, and confidence their body had before becoming addicted in the first place. 6.2 The annoying alarm. Do you know the feeling when a neighbor's home alarm has been ringing all day, or some other minor persistent aggravation? Then the noise suddenly stops and marvelous feelings of peace and tranquility wash over you. It isn't really peace but merely the ending of an aggravation. Before we start the next porn session, our bodies are complete. But we begin forcing our brains to pump dopamine into the body. When we're done and the dopamine begins to leave, we think we're suffering withdrawal pangs. This isn't physical pain, merely an empty feeling. We aren't even aware it exists. If you didn't know porn addiction causes this feeling, you might think it's normal. As previously stated, many porn addicts live and die never knowing they are addicted. These withdrawal symptoms are like a dripping tap inside our bodies. Our rational minds don't understand it, but they don't need to. All we know is that we want porn, and when we masturbate the craving goes away. However, the satisfaction is fleeting because in order to relieve the craving, more porn is required. As soon as you orgasm, the craving starts again and the trap continues to hold you. This is a feedback loop that is designed to continue forever, unless you break it. The porn trap is similar to wearing tight shoes just to obtain the pleasure of taking them off. There are 3 primary reasons why porn users can't see it this way. 1. From birth, we've been subjected to massive amounts of brainwashing telling us that internet porn is simply another modern development that replaced the printed version of porn. This fallacy is packaged with the message that masturbation isn't harmful to humans. 2. Physical dopamine withdrawal involves no actual pain, merely an empty, insecure feeling inseparable from hunger and normal stress. These feelings drive us into more and more porn sessions because the feelings we create are the same feelings we're trying to avoid by using porn. We regard these feelings and cravings as normal, even believing this is a normal person's sex drive. 24.3 It's when you're not consuming internet porn that you suffer feelings of emptiness and insecurity. The process of getting addicted is very subtle and gradual. The empty feelings come on slowly and are usually regarded as normal, even part of your personality, and are not blamed on the previous porn sessions. From the moment the internet browser is opened and you begin your session, you get an immediate dopamine boost, become less nervous, more relaxed, and internet porn gets all the credit for negating the emptiness you felt. This back-to-front process makes all drugs difficult to quit. Imagine the state of panic heroin addicts must feel when they don't have any more heroin. Now picture the utter joy they feel when they can finally plunge a needle into their vein. Non-heroin addicts don't suffer that panicked feeling. The drug doesn't relieve the feeling, it causes it. Non-porn users don't suffer empty feelings of deprivation and panic when haven't had their regular fix of internet porn. Non-porn users can't understand how porn users possibly obtain pleasure from two-dimensional videos with muted sounds and abnormal body proportions. Eventually, porn users can't understand it either, even when the cravings are stronger than they've ever been. We mentioned how internet porn feels relaxing or satisfying to the porn addict. But how can you be satisfied unless you were dissatisfied in the first place? A non-user doesn't suffer from this unsatisfied state, completely relaxed after a no-sex date, while the user can't relax until they having satisfied their little monster. 6.3 A genuine pleasure? As an important reminder, the main reason porn users find it difficult to quit is due to the belief that they're giving up genuine pleasure. It's essential to understand that you're giving up absolutely nothing. One way to understand the subtleties of the porn trap is by comparing it with eating. Eating regular meals helps us avoid the feeling of hunger. We only become aware of hunger if a meal is delayed. There's no physical pain, just an empty, insecure feeling recognized as hunger. This feeling makes the process of satisfying our hunger a very pleasant experience. Pornography addiction withdrawal causes similar feelings which we could mistake as natural, like hunger, but this is a huge mistake. With porn addiction withdrawals there's also no physical pain, just an empty, insecure ache, and the reward mechanism behaves in similar ways. But it's this similarity that tricks the porn user into believing there's a genuine pleasure to be obtained. Although eating and porn appear to be similar and both use the brain's reward-seeking mechanisms, there are major differences between them. Hunger is an indicator of a legitimate survival necessity, while withdrawal pangs from pornography addiction only indicate that the porn user is addicted. 25. Ignoring hunger, while possible for the disciplined, will result in degradation of the physical state, while ignoring withdrawal pangs from pornography addiction causes them to disappear without any repercussions. Eating does not create hunger, it genuinely relieves it, whereas each porn session adds to the brain's dependency on dopamine and makes the cravings for each subsequent porn session more intense. While it's true that some people suffer from eating disorders and addictions to certain foods, no one can simply stop eating forever. Food is a survival necessity. Contrarily, the only reason a porn user opens an internet browser is to end the empty feelings the previous porn session created. As the addiction becomes stronger, ending the withdrawal feelings requires a constant supply of new and outrageous porn to satiate the artificial craving. Chronic porn usage isn't a habit, it's a drug addiction. When we start to use porn, we have to force ourselves to cope with it. Before we know it, we're escalating into increasingly bizarre and shocking porn. The thrill is in the hunting, not the killing. Dopamine rapidly leaves the body after orgasm, explaining why porn users want to edge, delaying orgasm, by opening many browser tabs and constantly switching between them. 6.4 Crossing the red line. As with any other drug, the body tends to develop a tolerance to the same dosage of porn viewed repeatedly over time. Porn addicts can't be satisfied with the same old videos and images over and over. Our brains want something else and more of it. After short periods of watching the same porn content, it ceases to completely relieve the withdrawal pangs that the previous session created. There's a tug of war occurring in this porn paradise. You want to stay on the safe side of your dignity, but your brain is asking you to click on the forbidden fruit. You'll feel better after the porn session, but you'll be more nervous and less relaxed than someone who never started watching porn, even though this is supposed to be a pleasurable activity. The predicament is even worse than someone who wears tight shoes all day to feel the relief of taking them off, because the porn addict goes through life with an ever-increasing amount of discomfort even when not using porn. Because the porn user is constantly looking for opportunities to watch more porn, almost every situation turns into a trigger: boredom, stress, relaxation, being alone, after an evening of socializing, disappointment, celebration, everything becomes a trigger. The truth is that porn neither relieves boredom and stress nor promotes concentration and relaxation. If you think about it, it's impossible. Viewing porn causes the body to release and absorb dopamine, which creates a feeling of intense reward seeking and pursuit of more pleasure. Once the porn session is over, dopamine levels drop even lower than before because the excess dopamine has caused our brains to shut off dopamine receptors. We're left with the withdrawal pangs. Nowhere in that sequence is concentration and relaxation possible. 26. The human body is the most sophisticated object on the planet, but no species, even the lowest amoeba, survives without knowing the difference between food and poison. Through the evolutionary process of natural selection, our minds and bodies have developed processes for rewarding actions that multiply and sustain humanity, but these mechanisms are not built to handle a superstimulant bigger, brighter, and edgier than anything found in nature. For someone who has never seen porn before, even the most muted two-dimensional image causes them to become aroused, but when they repeatedly look at the same image over and over, they will no longer be stimulated. Normally, the person would go do something else once the allure of the image has worn off, but internet porn has no such limiter. There are more images and videos than anyone could ever watch in their entire lifetime. It's blatantly false that only physically and mentally weak people become porn users. Someone might get lucky and have their first exposure to porn be so revolting that they never seek it out again, or they may not be mentally prepared to go through the process of fighting to get themselves addicted, fearful of getting caught, being too busy, or not possessing the technical equipment or knowledge. Almost everyone knows how to operate a smartphone today, and the average age when children are first exposed to porn keeps getting lower. Enjoying internet porn is an illusion. Jumping from genre to genre, trying to find satisfaction without getting into the really extreme stuff so we can get a dopamine fix. Like heroin addicts, all they're really enjoying is the ritual of relieving the withdrawal for a while until it comes back. 6.5 The high from the dance around the red line. Even when the porn addict finally finds a video clip that appeals to them, they will search for the few seconds scattered throughout the video they can enjoy, taking great care to avoid the disgusting parts. They will find and focus on the body parts that appeal to them the most. To live with themselves, porn users will dance around the red line, trying to stay entertained with softcore porn and avoiding the extreme stuff. But ask any porn user, if you cannot get your normal brand of porn and can only obtain an unsafe genre, do you stop masturbating? Of course not. A porn user will masturbate to anything: extreme, differences in sex orientation, look-alike performers, dangerous settings, shocking relationships, etc. Anything is better than nothing. To begin with, it might seem awful, but given enough time and you'll learn to enjoy them. Porn users will seek fulfillment from porn after having real sex, after a long work day, fever, colds, flu, sore throats, and even when admitted in hospitals. Enjoyment has nothing to do with it. If sex is the goal, it makes no sense to be alone with your laptop. 27 Some porn users find it alarming to realize they're drug addicts and might become discouraged about being able to quit. However, this is good news for two important reasons. One, the reason why most of us continue using is because although we know the disadvantages far outweigh the advantages, we believe there's something in the porn that we actually enjoy, or that it acts like some sort of prop. We're under the illusion that after we stop using porn, there will be a void and certain situation in our lives never being quite the same. In fact, Porn not only provides nothing, it only subtracts from our lives. 2. Although internet porn is the most powerful trigger for novelty and sex-based dopamine flooding, because of the speed you become hooked, you're never badly hooked. The actual withdrawal pangs are so mild that most porn users have lived and died without realizing they've suffered them. Then why is it so difficult to quit? Why do porn users go through months of torture and spend the rest of their lives craving for porn at odd times? The answer is brainwashing. The neurotransmitter addiction is easy to cope with. Most porn users can go for days without porn while on business trips or travel, seemingly unaffected by withdrawal symptoms. Their little monster is safe in the knowledge you'll open your laptop as soon as you get to your hotel room with some free time. You can survive your obnoxious client and your megalomaniac manager, knowing the fix is there to take care of you. 6.6 The smoker's analogy. A good analogy is that of the cigarette smoker. If a smoker goes 10 hours without a cigarette, they'll be tearing their hair out, but many smokers will buy a new car and refrain from smoking in it. Many will visit theaters, supermarkets, churches will have no problem not smoking in them. On trains and airplanes there have been no riots by smokers. They might almost be pleased for having someone or something to stop them from smoking. Porn users will refrain from using internet porn in their parents' home during family gatherings with no trouble. In fact, most porn users have extended periods during which they abstain without any effort. The little monster is easy to cope with even when you're still addicted. There are millions of people who remain casual porn users all their lives and they're just as addicted as the heavy user. There are even heavy porn users who've kicked the addiction but have an occasional peak, ensuring the door is wide open for another binge as soon as they feel depressed. As stated previously, porn addiction isn't the main problem. It simply acts as a catalyst to keep our minds confused about the real problem, brainwashing. Don't think the negative side effects of internet porn are exaggerated. If anything, they're understated. However, don't believe those who say that the neural pathways forged by porn addiction will be present for life. Our brains and bodies are miraculous machines, recovering within a matter of weeks. 28 It's never too late to quit. A quick search of online communities will show you people of all ages rebooting their, and their partners, lives. As with anything, some humans take it to the next level, practicing semen retention and kuritsa, and through differentiation of the amative and propagative sides of sex, make their partners happier than ever before. Let it be consoling to lifelong and heavy porn users that it's just as easy for them to quit as it is for casual porn users. In fact, it's easier. The further porn has dragged you down, the greater the relief. When I quit, I went straight to zero and didn't have any painful withdrawal. In fact, the process was enjoyable. But first, we must remove the brainwashing. 29 Chapter 7 Brainwashing. Brainwashing is one of the primary factors behind why we start using pornography. To fully understand this brainwashing, we first have to examine the powerful effects of porn being a supernormal stimulus. Our brains simply are not prepared for internet pornography, which allows us to quickly simulate intimacy with more potential mates in 15 minutes than our ancestors had in several lifetimes. There's been much misguided advice in the past, one such being that masturbation leads to blindness. This, along with other scare tactics, clearly didn't work. Misconceptions such as these were overthrown by science. But the baby has been thrown out with the bathwater. From our earliest years, our subconscious minds are bombarded with sexual messages and imagery. Magazines, online ads, and TV commercials are loaded with innuendo. Most pop music videos are extremely suggestive. But don't despair, make it a game to identify what components they're using. Is it shock value, novelty, color, size, taboo, etc.? Such a game can even be taught to preteens as a way to educate them. When you are aware of the message's intent, you aren't vulnerable to its persuasions. At its core, the message is, the most precious thing on this earth, my last thought and action, will be orgasm. Is this exaggeration? Watch any TV or movie plot and you'll see the mix-up of the amative, touch, smell, voice, and the propagative, orgasmic, parts of sex. The impact of this doesn't register on our conscious, but the subconscious has time to absorb it. 7.1 Scientific reasoning. There is plenty of content available on the dangers of porn. Porn-induced erectile dysfunction, loss of motivation, preferring porn to real girls, etc. Communities like Your Brain on Porn and various internet subcultures do a good job of socializing these dangers, but these movements don't actually stop people from using porn. Logically speaking, they should, but the simple fact is they don't. Even the health risks listed from peer-reviewed studies on the Your Brain on Porn website aren't enough to stop an adolescent from starting to use porn. Ironically, the most powerful force in this confusion is the user themselves. It's a fallacy that porn users are weak-willed or physically weak people. You have to be strong in order to cope with an addiction after you know it exists. It's saddening to note that porn users who are coping with their addiction often identify themselves as unsuccessful losers and insufferable introverts. It's likely that they would be more successful if they stopped putting themselves down for seeking self-pleasure. No one who innocently sought out their first porn session expected to find a lifelong addiction. 37.2 The willpower method. Porn users trying to quit using the willpower method blame their own lack of willpower and ruin their peace and happiness. It's one thing to fail in self-discipline and another to hate yourself. After all, there's no law that requires you to be always ready to have sex, to be properly aroused and able to satisfy your partner at all times. We're working on addiction, not habit, and at no point do you argue with yourself to stop a habit like golfing. But to do the same with porn addiction is normalized. Why? Constant exposure to a supernormal stimulus like porn rewires your brain. Building a resistance to this brainwashing is critical. It's like buying a car from a second-hand car dealer. Nod politely but don't believe a single word spoken. Don't believe that you must have as much sex as you can, with every real-life sexual encounter being like the performances you watch online. You don't need to use porn in the absence of real sex to prove you're not a prude. Don't play the safe porn game either. This is how your addicted brain tries to rationalize your addiction. Is amateur porn certified by some kind of authority? Porn sites gather data from porn users and use it to market to them. Porn is a business. If porn providers get more clicks in certain categories, they'll focus on it and get more content out. Don't be fooled by realistic porn or amateur genres as if they aren't as harmful as the extreme stuff. Start asking yourself, why am I doing it? Do I really need this? Most porn users promise themselves that they will only watch 2D and soft porn content and therefore they are fine. But in actuality, they are straining at the leash and fighting with their willpower. Willpower is like a muscle. If exerted for too long and too often, it will begin to fail. Once willpower is weakened from struggling to resist cravings for porn, other life projects begin failing as well. Willpower is of great value for self-improvement projects like becoming physically fit, dieting, learning a new language, etc. Continuous failures in these other areas can make any person feel miserable and guilty. For a porn user, these failures will send them right back into a pornography binge. Once you become addicted to internet porn, the brainwashing is in full force. Your subconscious mind now fully believes that your cravings for porn must be satisfied, blocking everything else from your mind. It's fear that keeps people from quitting. Fear of that empty, insecure feeling they get when they stop the steady supply of dopamine. Just because you aren't aware of it doesn't mean it isn't there. You don't need to understand it any more than a cat needs to understand how the solar system works. The cat just knows that if it sits in a certain spot it feels warm. 7.3 Passivity. Our passive minds and our dependence on authority strengthens the effectiveness of our brainwashing and is one of the main reasons why it's difficult to quit porn. Our upbringing in society, reinforced by the brainwashing of our own addiction, and the most influential people in our lives, our friends, relatives, and 31 colleagues. The phrase giving up porn reflects this brainwashing because it implies genuine sacrifice. The beautiful truth is there's nothing to give up. On the contrary, you'll be freeing yourself from a terrible disease and achieving marvelous positive gains. We'll begin to reverse this brainwashing right now, starting with no longer saying we're giving up porn, but saying we're quitting, and more accurately, escaping. One of the main reasons we first used porn is because other people are doing it and we think we're missing out. With every porn session, we reassure ourselves that there must be something in it, otherwise people wouldn't be doing it and the porn industry wouldn't be so huge. Even when they manage to quit, the ex-porn user feels like they're being deprived when they hear about a sexy entertainer, singer, or porn star. They must be good if all my friends talk about them, right? Do they have free pictures online? They feel safe, they'll just have one peek tonight and before they know it, they're hooked again. The brainwashing is powerful and you need to be aware of its effects. Technology continues to grow and the future will bring more ways to access porn. The porn industry is investing millions in virtual reality. If we're unprepared to handle it, we'll be at the mercy of whatever the porn industry comes up with next to keep their customers addicted. We must confront what we've been brainwashed to believe. It isn't the non-porn user who's being deprived of pleasure, but it's the porn users who are depriving themselves of health, energy, wealth, peace of mind, confidence, courage, self-respect, happiness, freedom. What do porn users receive in return for making these very considerable sacrifices? Only the illusion that they can still use porn and also possess the state of peace, tranquility, and confidence that the non-porn user has the opportunity to enjoy. 7.4 Withdrawal pangs. Porn users believe they use porn for enjoyment and relaxation, but really, it's to get relief from dopamine withdrawal. Our subconscious mind begins to learn that internet porn and masturbation at certain times feels pleasurable and relieving. The more we become addicted to the super stimuli, the greater the need to relieve the discomfort of withdrawal, and the more trapped we become. This process happens so slowly that you 32 aren't even aware of it. Young porn users don't realize they're addicted until they try to quit, and even then, they'll be in denial that they're addicted. This denial could last for years before they finally get serious about quitting. 33 Chapter 8 Brainwashing Aspects. In part, the porn trap is built by societal forces, media, peers, and the porn user's own internal narrative. Failure to understand the inadequacies of the willpower method will eventually lead the user back into the trap through feelings of deprivation. Deconstruction of the imagined value of porn is crucial for success, allowing you to see how you're being cheated. It's important to note the link between brainwashing and fear. It's fear of feeling deprived that creates the insecurity and discomfort of withdrawal from porn addiction. Fear is the withdrawal itself. Many porn users experience withdrawal symptoms such as sweaty palms, feeling emotionally isolated, trouble sleeping, and inability to concentrate. Now think of situations when you've experienced the same feelings: job interviews, nerves around an attractive person, public speaking, working under intense deadlines, etc. These are the same anxious feelings that fear causes. With porn, we are not ingesting a physical drug. Nothing is being ingested. The keys to our success lie in our mentalities. 8.1 Stress. Through consistent use of porn for a duration of time, a porn user's neural pathways will have formed to trigger cravings and urges not only when the person faces real setbacks in life but also when they encounter minor stresses and normal discomforts. Eventually, almost any situation will create cravings in the porn user's brain, including many normal activities that everyone deals with, like socializing, taking phone calls, paying bills, dealing with young children, facing school deadlines, going to work on Monday, etc. Coming home to a mundane family life causes the porn user to fantasize about finding excitement through porn when they can finally get some time alone. Having built up a strong addiction, the porn user suffers through withdrawals and depleted neurotransmitter receptors, making themselves even more unprepared to handle the normal ups and downs of life. Life hasn't become more stressful, the porn user's brain has simply become less capable of handling it. By using porn to partially relieve feelings of withdrawal and at the same time relieve normal stresses, the porn user believes they are receiving a legitimate, temporary benefit. The benefit isn't an illusion. The user does genuinely feel better during the porn session, but they're only alleviating a problem that wouldn't exist in the first place if they didn't use porn at all. The following example isn't designed to shock you. This method promises no such treatment, but is to emphasize that porn destroys your nerves rather than relieving them. 34. Imagine getting to the stage where you are unable to be aroused, even with a very sexy and attractive partner. Visualize life where a very lovely and charming person has to compete with the virtual porn stars who occupy all your attention. Imagine the frame of mind of a person who hears this warning but continues using porn and dies without ever having real sex with this charming and willing partner. It's easy to dismiss these people as weirdos, but stories like these aren't uncommon. This is what the superstimulus of internet porn does to your brain. The more you go through life while using porn, the more you're deluded into the believing porn is a legitimate and even preferable alternative to real sex. Because the amount of dopamine produced by the brain during porn sessions is more than it can handle, the addiction systematically sabotages your ability to feel normal daily pleasures. At the same time, the protein delta FOSB does its job, which is to make it easier for your brain to recall the sequences which lead to the procurement of more dopamine, making it more and more difficult to resist cravings for porn. When a porn user reaches the stage where their sexual performance is being affected, they have essentially made porn their sexual partner and are unable to face life without it, like an addict dependent on a drug. One of the greatest benefits of breaking the addiction is the return of your natural confidence and self-assurance. But this freedom cannot be obtained by repeating the same destructive behavior, reinforcing the brain's cravings for porn-induced dopamine, and undercutting your happiness and libido. 8.2 Boredom. The belief that porn relieves boredom is another fallacy that we must debunk. Boredom is a frame of mind. When you're addicted to the superstimulant of internet porn and then try to abstain unwillingly, it feels like you're missing something. You feel like you're being deprived of real pleasure. If you have something to occupy your mind, you can go for long periods of time without being bothered by the absence of porn. This is how porn addicts can go on vacations, take school trips, and go on extended periods without using porn when they have something that keeps them busy. However, when they're not occupied, and there's nothing to take their minds off the empty, insecure, uncomfortable feeling of porn withdrawal, the porn addict will be unable to shake the craving for porn and will eventually start another porn session. Porn users perform this ritual without even thinking. When trying to remember all recent porn sessions during the last week, they can only remember a small portion of them, like the most recent session or the first one after a long period of distraction. The truth is that porn actually increases periods of inactivity and boredom. Constantly flooding the brain with more dopamine than can be found in normal daily living causes porn users to find daily living unappealing and unstimulating. Furthermore, orgasms make us feel lethargic, and instead of undertaking an energetic activity, porn users tend to lounge around, unable to summon motivation to do anything aside from seeking out more 35 dopamine to relieve feelings of withdrawal. Porn users will gravitate to more dopamine-inducing activities like browsing social media, playing video games, watching TV, eating junk food, and of course, looking for more porn. We need to debunk the belief that porn users look for porn just because they're bored, and if they weren't bored, they wouldn't look for porn. In truth, porn users create their own boredom so that they can then relieve it with porn. By making everything else seem uninteresting, porn users program themselves into believing their lives are uninteresting, their personalities are dull, and nothing is appealing, except porn. Similarly, we've also been brainwashed into believing porn and sex, even bad sex, results in relaxation. It's a fact that when sad or under stress, couples want to have sex. It's very common for couples to cope with relationship problems with sex. In the absence of discrimination between amative and propagative sex, they immediately want to get away from each other as soon as the mandatory orgasm is achieved. 8.3 Concentration. After years of dopamine flooding, the brain's performance of activities such as accessing information, concentrating, and controlling impulses will have changed. Concentration is adversely affected due to the brain's dopamine receptors being reduced by natural tolerance checks and balances reacting to the large surges of dopamine induced by porn. This greatly reduces the benefit of smaller dopamine boosts provided by the natural distressors we encounter in our daily lives. Your concentration and inspiration will be greatly boosted when dopamine flooding is ceased and the process of shutting off our dopamine receptors is reduced. For many porn users, it is the reduced ability to concentrate that prevents them from succeeding with the willpower method. They could put up with the irritability and bad temper, but the failure to concentrate on something difficult ruins their attempts to quit porn. The loss of ability to concentrate isn't due to the absence of sex, let alone porn. It's the brain's programming through addiction and inability to detach from the super stimuli you've become addicted to. You have mental blocks when you're addicted to something, and when you have a mental block, what do? You engage in a porn session to relax, but it doesn't help you. Then what do? You do what everyone else does, including non-porn users, you get on with life. Except, you are at a disadvantage because your brain is inhibited by your addiction. 36 If you believe that porn is a genuine aid to concentration, remember, it's the porn user who cannot concentrate in the first place. Non-porn users don't have this problem. I hope you're beginning to see the big picture. Porn creates the very problems porn users claim that it solves. It's like wearing tight shoes all day so you can feel the relief of taking them off. 8.4 Relaxation. Porn users may believe porn helps them relax. Does the frantic search for the right images and video clips, opening up dozens of browser tabs to get a fix, sound like a relaxing activity to you? After a long day we sit down to relax, relieving our hunger, thirst, and are completely satisfied. But the porn user isn't able to relax with these simple pleasures because there's another hunger to satisfy. Porn users might think of porn as icing on the cake, but it's actually all that matters to them. The truth is that the addict cannot be completely relaxed unless they are in the middle of a porn session. The inability to relax becomes worse throughout life as long as the addiction remains in place. A comment from an ex-porn user: I really believed that I had an impulsive personality. Now I see that it wasn't some inherent flaw in my character but a problem I had created for myself by using porn. During those times I thought I had so many problems, but when I look back on my life I wonder where all the stress was coming from. In everything else, I was in control, only thing controlling me was porn. It's very common for a porn addict to try to justify their addiction saying, "It helps me relax." I read the testimony of a single father whose 6-year-old son wanted to share his bed after watching a scary movie, but the father refused so he could have a porn session and edge for hours. This father will regret his choice, and others he undoubtedly made to facilitate his porn addiction, for the rest of his life. Does this sound like a relaxing activity to you? A couple of years ago, child adoption authorities threatened to prevent smokers from adopting children. A man called a radio show to disagree. "You're completely wrong. I can remember when I was a child, if I had a contentious matter to raise with my mother, I would wait until she lit a cigarette because then she was more relaxed and attentive to me." But why couldn't the man talk to his mother when she wasn't smoking a cigarette? Why are porn users unable to completely relax when they're not in the middle of a porn session, even after having real sex? Why are porn users unable to make it only a couple of days without a fix? 37 Porn users can take an abstinence oath and commit to quit porn, but you'll notice how they struggle with temptation, clearly not relaxed at all when forcing themselves not to have the only pleasure they have in their lives. They've forgotten what it's like to be able to relax completely. They're victims of brainwashing, fully believing that porn provides pleasure and relaxation. A porn user's relationship with porn is like a fly caught in a pitcher plant. To begin, the fly is drinking the plant's nectar, but at some indiscernible stage, the plant begins to eat the fly. Isn't it time you climbed out of the plant? 8.5 Social night sessions. Why do porn users believe looking tired and not up to their best when going out for a fun social night or date is the right thing to do? The popularity of pickup techniques has reinforced widespread belief that social nights and dating are only about performance, picking up potential sex partners, and scoring. Porn users attempt to drown their anxieties with porn and numb their fear of failing to live up to the standard of getting to orgasm by the end of the night. Ironically, the brain fog, inability to concentrate, degraded wit, and slower reflexes after a porn session do more to sabotage their goal to get laid more than the anxiety does. Societal factors, including widespread porn addiction, have brainwashed us into believing that the only goal in dating is to achieve sexual pleasure and orgasm as quickly and painlessly as possible. Does this sound familiar? Indeed, many porn users have basically given up on dating entirely. With orgasm being the overall goal, why bother leaving the house when you can get unlimited orgasms without any risk? Porn users who manage to build up the motivation to go on dates feel immense pressure to close the deal and get someone in bed by the end of the night. If they don't, they feel like failures, putting themselves in ideal position for a post-date porn session. Even if the date went well and the goal of getting sex was achieved, there's always the possibility of not being able to perform when the time comes. Not all real-life sex is how porn videos make it out to be. Real people aren't airbrushed models. Not everyone has perfectly groomed and shapely bodies. When orgasm is the only goal, no matter how the date goes, the porn user won't be satisfied. If the date night sex didn't proceed as perfectly as their porn sessions, and they never will, they'll be craving for the porn experience again as soon as they get home. 38 It's often after nights like these, waking up feeling uneasy and empty, that the porn user feels the most deprived when contemplating quitting porn. They think life will never be quite as enjoyable again if they quit. Don't be fooled, it's just the same principle at work. Porn sessions simply provide relief from withdrawals caused by previous porn sessions. Each attempt to relieve feelings of withdrawal with porn ensures another porn session is in your future. Rest assured, once the need for porn is removed and recovery begins, occasions like socials and date nights will become exponentially more enjoyable and fulfilling. 39 Chapter 9 What am I giving up? Porn is difficult to give up because we fear we're being deprived of real pleasure. We fear that certain pleasant situations will never be the same again. We fear we'll be unable to cope with stressful situations. Don't be fooled, we've been brainwashed into believing that sex and by extension, orgasm, is a constant and frequent need as critical as food and oxygen. Even further, we've been brainwashed to believe that using internet porn fulfills this need and quitting will deprive us of real benefits, leaving a void that we must fill with something else. We must combat these misconceptions and false beliefs with truth and science. Understand with all confidence and clarity that porn doesn't fill a void in your life, it creates one. Our bodies are the most sophisticated objects on the planet. Whether you believe in intelligent design, natural selection, or a combination of both, our bodies are thousands of times more effective than anything man-made. We're unable to create the smallest living cell, the miracle of eyesight, a functioning reproductive system, or any of the various interlinked systems present in our bodies and brains. Our bodies have been provisioned with fail-safe mechanisms to handle superstimuli like internet porn, and we ignore these at our peril. By understanding how our bodies work and how it responds to internet porn, we can rest in the truth that our fears are unfounded and simply the result of believing in frivolous cultural stigmas. 9.1 There's nothing to give up once you understand where you've been brainwashed and can see pornography for what it really is. You'll neither want to dedicate your life to achieving orgasms or use internet porn for it. There are many unknowns when it comes to porn addiction, with much of the medical community not even questioning if porn addiction could be a factor when assigning diagnoses. Many reported symptoms of porn addiction could be assigned to other causes. Porn addicts are not stupid people, they're just miserable with and without porn. Caught between two wrongs, they try to abstain and become miserable because they feel deprived of something they love, or they feel guilty and despise themselves for using porn. When porn users get symptoms such as lower back pain or porn-induced erectile dysfunction, their minds are torn between accepting responsibility for their addiction or getting a prescription for painkillers and Viagra. 40. We've all seen smokers make excuses to sneak off for a puff and show us the true addiction in action. Addicts don't do this for enjoyment, instead they're doing it because they're miserable without it. When the addict realizes that the addiction is simultaneously creating the feelings of deprivation and withdrawal as well as relieving them, they can see the addiction for what it really is, slavery. Furthermore, when the addict realizes by understanding how their bodies work, that the addiction is simultaneously making itself look more appealing as well as making everything else appear less appealing by rewiring the brain and shutting off dopamine receptors, they'll understand that watching porn is a useless activity providing no benefit at all. Not only is there nothing to give up by quitting porn, there's much to be gained. Once the cycle of dopamine flooding and numbing of withdrawals is stopped, we can enjoy life to the fullest again. You'll have motivation to try new things. You'll actually enjoy moments of nervousness when you're about to do something you've never done before. You'll be inspired to start new hobbies. You'll have the willpower to set new fitness goals. You'll have the patience to meditate and experience real peace again. You won't be bored all the time anymore. Simple activities like listening to your favorite music will feel more beautiful than before. 9.2 Void, the beautiful void. Imagine that you have a huge pimple on your face. You go to the pharmacy and they give you a free ointment to try. You put the ointment on and the pimple disappears immediately. But a week later it reappears, so you go back to the pharmacist and request more free ointment. You apply the ointment and the pimple disappears again. However, after a few days, the pimple reappears and this time it's slightly larger and more painful than before. Even worse, another pimple is coming in right next to the first. You apply the ointment and the pimples disappear, but again, more pimples return and they're a little larger and more painful than before. Now you notice that the interval between the pimples' reappearance gets shorter and shorter. Eventually, the pimples cover your whole face, are excruciatingly painful, and start reappearing every hour. You know the ointment will remove them temporarily, but you're very worried. Will the pimples eventually spread over your whole body? Will the hour of relief be reduced to nothing? The doctor can't cure it, so you try other things, but nothing helps except the ointment. 41 By now you're completely dependent on the ointment. You can't leave the house without ensuring you have a full container of it with you. When you travel, you need to keep several containers in your checked luggage. In addition to your worries about your health, the pharmacist begins charging you $100 a tube. You have no choice but to pay it. One day, you stumble across an internet article discussing the pimples and the ointment. You discover this predicament isn't unique to you. Many people are suffering from the same problem. In fact, the medical community has discovered that the ointment doesn't actually cure the pimples, but only drives them beneath the surface of the skin. Furthermore, the ointment itself is causing the pimples to grow. If you stop using the ointment, the pimples will stop growing and gradually disappear on their own. Would you continue to use the ointment? Without knowing that the ointment was both the cause and solution for your situation, would willpower be effective in abstaining from using the ointment? If you didn't believe the article, you might be apprehensive, but once you realized the pimples were beginning to heal on their own, the need or desire to use the ointment would be gone. Would you be miserable without the ointment? Of course not. You had an awful problem which you thought was incurable, but now you've found the solution. Even if it took a year for the pimples to go away, if each day they improved, you'd be elated. You certainly wouldn't count how many days it's been since you last used the ointment or create a goal to go 90 days before using the ointment again. This is how it feels to quit porn. It's so nice to be free. 42 Chapter 10 Saving Time. Common reasons porn users state when trying to quit are health, religion, and partner stigma. But these are all external motivators, not the wishes of the porn user themselves. External motivators are the main reason why people get trapped by the willpower method. They don't really desire to quit, but are either being forced to quit or are trying to force themselves to quit. However, porn becomes precious to us when we're unwillingly trying to abstain and when abstinence is forced on us. The key to quitting is in destroying the misconceptions we've been brainwashed to accept as truth. The more we dispel these falsities, the easier it will be to quit porn. Porn users who don't believe that porn has any negative effect on their health and aren't having a mental tug-of-war with themselves are typically young, single, and possibly with an occasional sex partner. The addiction hasn't had time to cause enough noticeable detriment to their lives, or such detriments are still too infrequent to be registered. However, something no one can justify regardless of age, is the time spent using porn. Let's assume your porn addiction costs you 30 minutes per day on average. This means you're spending a full work day every 2 weeks and a full month of working days every year watching porn. I'm sure you'd agree that for an average porn addict, an average of 30 minutes per day watching porn is a very conservative estimate. Even for porn users who don't use porn every day due to being busy with work, school, or other commitments, once the weekend arrives, it's very normal to engage in porn sessions lasting several hours. Have you ever thought about how much time you'll spend in your lifetime watching porn? What else could you be doing with that time? What if you used that time to invest into real relationships? Your favorite porn star doesn't have any sympathy for you. Your viewership is making them money. But the time is not simply being wasted in a harmless activity. You're actually spending that time to ruin your physical health, destroy your ability to handle normal stress levels, and degrade your confidence. Younger porn users have likely never considered that their porn usage could become a lifelong addiction. As we know, this is the mindset every porn addict starts with. We never intended our first few peeks at porn to become an addiction. No porn addict, if given the chance to take back the first peek, would ever choose to do it all over again. Occasionally, porn addicts will calculate the time they waste watching porn over an average week, and that's alarming enough. Less occasionally, only when they think of quitting, a porn addict might estimate time spent over a year, which is even more frightening, but over a lifetime? Unthinkable. Young porn users always think they'll be able to quit before it gets too bad. Then one day they try, and fail. They try again 43 and fail again. This is when porn is no longer enjoyable. It's an addiction which will last for the rest of our lives, unless we learn how to quit. Would you refuse a job offer that pays your current annual salary and also gives you an extra month off work every year? Anyone would agree in a heartbeat and get busy finding holiday travel deals to exotic locations. Figuring out how to spend an extra month with no work would be the biggest problem to solve. However, in every discussion with an addicted porn user, and please don't get offended, I'm not talking to someone like yourself who plans to quit before it gets too bad. No one has ever taken me up on that job offer. You can get a month of your life back every year for free with no risk right now. When we need to make big decisions in life, we often employ analytical processes, weighing up advantages and disadvantages to arrive at a rational decision. We might make a wrong decision, but it will be the result of rational deduction. Whenever any porn user weighs up the pros and cons of using internet porn, the answer is always, stop using porn. Clearly, porn users are doing so not because they want to, but because they can't stop. Because it's humiliating to admit that they've lost control, they'll go to great lengths to justify their actions, trying to convince themselves that they have good reasons for them. Internet porn is a loop chain reaction, and the chain will remain in place for life if you don't break it. Estimate how much time you think you'll spend on porn for the remainder of your existence. The amount will vary from person to person, but if we continue with our assumption that the average porn user spends an average 30 minutes per day, 1 work day every 2 weeks, 26 work days a year watching internet porn, that calculates out to over 4 years spent watching porn if you started watching porn when you were 20 until you die at age 70. Imagine receiving a check from the lottery for over 4 times your annual salary. You'd be overjoyed. This is what it feels like to quit porn forever. If you think this is an unfair way of looking at it, you're still fooling yourself. Calculate how much time you would have saved if you'd never started using porn. If you're mentoring someone for their porn addiction, tell them you know someone who is refusing a job offer that will pay them their current annual salary and gives them an extra month off of work every year. When they ask who that idiot is, tell them, it's you. 44 Chapter 11 Health is probably the number one reason people use to try to convince themselves to quit porn. However, trying to shock porn users into quitting by mentioning all the health-related side effects is generally ineffective because the addict knows that the next porn session won't kill them. If you knew, with every porn session, that there was a 50% chance you would either experience an orgasm or your head would explode, would you still use porn? Of course not. But because the health effects of porn use manifest so slowly, it's easy to ignore them. Since they manifest so slowly, it's also entirely possible that the addict will blame them on something else. If a porn user is also overweight, their obesity could also be an explanation for their erectile dysfunction. If a porn user is depressed, chemical imbalance could be blamed for it, even if porn addiction is causing the imbalance in the first place. Placing pictures of cancerous lungs, throats, livers, and hearts on cigarette packages doesn't deter the addicted smoker from buying more smokes. They know that the next cigarette isn't going to kill them. In the same way, the health effects of porn addiction come on so slowly that even if porn addicts are keenly aware of them, they also know that they're not going to die the next time they watch porn. This makes it rather easy to ignore the health factors of porn addiction entirely. Listing off the health effects of porn addiction is especially ineffective on young porn users because they may not suffer from depression or melancholy yet. Depression isn't the root cause of the problem, it's just a symptom. Younger people in general may not feel the irritability or depression caused by porn addiction yet due to their body's natural ability to produce more dopamine overall. As they age, their lives will encounter more serious setbacks and already depleted bodily resources will be overworked, causing them to experience full-blown porn addiction symptoms. When older porn users feel stressed, depressed, or irritated, it's because nature's fail-safe mechanisms are protecting their brains from excessive dopamine flooding by trimming off dopamine receptors. As real as the dangers may be, it's difficult to motivate a person to avoid unhealthy activities while they're still healthy. It's only when they are experienced that health issues become real motivators for change. We say our health is our greatest asset. Most of us can look back at an illness or accident in our lives when we were so upset that we prayed to get better, but it was always after the illness or accident occurred. We aren't nearly as desperate to be spared health problems before they occur, even when we're fully aware of the dangers of our most self-destructive behaviors. 45 The truth is, porn is a loop chain reaction. We never intend to keep using porn until we're no longer able to achieve a normal erection during sex with a real-life partner, but if we continue to engage in each successive porn session, porn-induced erectile dysfunction will become a reality. Enough case studies have been recorded for this to be taken as fact. Volumes upon volumes of research have already been written about the damage that internet porn causes to our sex lives and mental well-being. The damage is already taking place. Every time you open up a new incognito tab, you're triggering dopamine and opiate floods, reinforcing the loop chain reaction, creating stronger withdrawals, and wiring the brain to become more dependent on porn. But because this process involves no acute pain or excruciating discomfort, it's easily ignored even when we know it's happening and that the day will come when we won't be able to ignore it anymore. For porn users who are keenly aware of the health effects, each porn session becomes a tug of war with themselves. It's unhealthy, it's enslaving, it's a waste of time, it makes me feel guilty. At the same time, it feels good, it's natural, it's normal, there's nothing wrong with it. Heroin addicts deprived of heroin go through the same misery tug of war with themselves, but by imagining the utter joy they will feel when they can finally plunge the needle into their vein and end that terrible craving, they justify their addiction and keep the cycle going. Try to imagine how anyone could actually believe they get pleasure from sticking a hypodermic syringe into their veins. Non-addicts don't suffer from this internal tug of war. Non-porn users don't feel miserable if they aren't allowed to use porn, only porn users suffer that feeling. To combat the fear of the negative health consequences of porn addiction, addicts use many arguments to rationalize their self-destructive behavior. I'll eventually get old and lose my sexually prowess anyway. Not necessarily, but even if that's true, sexual prowess isn't the only point. There's depression, anxiety, inability to concentrate, inability to effectively socialize, and more. Is the fact that we will eventually die anyway a logical reason to drink poison? Sexual dysfunction has a lot to do with your brain and mindset. Internet porn rewires your brain's reward circuitry to give you a doubting mindset. This self-doubt will cause sexual dysfunction. Porn will put intense sexual cravings in your brain, but produce less and less arousal in your genitals. Libido, paired with romance, is the elixir of youth, and you can have that until you die. Quality of life is more important than just living. Exactly, but does this mean the porn user is suggesting that the quality of life an addict is superior to that of a non-addict? A life spent fighting an internal tug of war, being miserable unless in the middle of a porn session, does not sound like a life of quality. 46 I'm single and not planning to settle down in the future, so why not? Being single is one thing. Being isolated, ineffective, unable to appreciate real sex, and wasting hours of your life each week watching porn is quite another. Progressively depleting our brain's reward circuits through excessive stimulation, making them incapable of handling the normal stresses of life, doesn't help us enjoy life with enthusiasm and vigor. For the porn addict, porn and masturbation have replaced a natural sexual appetite. Using porn creates a continuous chain with each subsequent porn session creating the need for the next. When you start the habit, you light a fuse. The problem is, you don't know how long the fuse is. Every time that you start a new porn session, you make the fuse a little bit shorter. Eventually there will be none left and the negative health effects of porn addiction will become your reality. This method will help you rid yourself of porn and become a happy ex-porn user. When you quit porn for good and start recovering from the damage it has caused, you won't need porn to aid your erections anymore. You don't need to watch porn with your partner in order to get hard anymore. You won't need to sneak away after sex to watch porn and masturbate in order to achieve orgasm. You'll become aroused by the touch, scent, and voice of your loving partner. Like eating a full course meal satisfies a well-developed appetite, you'll no longer want the high sugar content of internet porn. But we both know that facts like these won't be enough to make you quit using porn, so we won't spend more time than we already have on the health-related side effects of porn. 47 Chapter 12 Energy. As mentioned, the porn trap is subtle. The effects that it has upon us both physically and mentally happen so gradually and imperceptibly that we aren't aware of them and often regard them as normal instead. The effect is similar to that of bad eating habits. When we look at someone who is grossly overweight, we wonder how they could have possibly allowed themselves to reach that state. But this state wasn't achieved overnight. Imagine that this person went to bed slim, full of muscle, with no fat rolls on their body and awoke to find themselves morbidly obese. They'd be horrified. This is exactly how porn addiction affects our energy levels. Imagine that you never had trouble sleeping or getting a great night's rest. Then you had your first ever porn session. The next morning, instead of waking up feeling fully rested and full of energy, you felt absolutely miserable, lethargic, and barely able to open your eyes. You'd be terrified and wondering what awful disease you had contracted overnight. But the effect of porn addiction is exactly the same. It simply takes a few years to manifest rather than occurring overnight. The reverse effect is also the same. If you could magically fast forward to how you will feel when you abstain from porn usage for 30 days, you'd be aghast at your current state because of the stark contrast in your energy levels. You'd be asking yourself why you let yourself sink so low. You wouldn't just feel healthier with more energy, but you'd be sprouting far more confidence and a heightened ability to concentrate. Because the change is so gradual, just like for the obese person, lack of energy, tiredness, and everything related to it is conveniently swept under the rug of getting older or having a slower metabolism. Friends and colleagues who also live sedentary lifestyles and are addicted to porn themselves further compound the normalization of this behavior. The belief that having lots of energy is exclusive to children and teenagers and that old age begins in your 20s is another result of brainwashing. Society has normalized bad eating and exercise habits on top of the detrimental effects of porn addiction and dopamine desensitization. Shortly after quitting porn, the foggy, lethargic feelings will begin to leave you. Unlike quitting smoking, where the return of your physical and mental health is extremely gradual, if it ever returns, quitting porn gives you excellent results from day one. Getting completely free from the loop chain reaction takes a little more time. Thanks to our body's marvelous ability to heal itself, healing from porn addiction happens exponentially quicker than the time it took to become addicted. However, if you're going through the trauma of the willpower method, any health or energy gains you hope to experience will be obliterated by the depression and torture you'll go through while fighting the tug of war of trying to force yourself to quit even though you don't really want to. 48 Unfortunately, it's not possible for any method to immediately transfer you into your mind and body 3 weeks from now. But now that you instinctively know that what you're being told is correct, all you need to do is enjoy being a free ex-porn user and you'll be there in no time. The last couple of chapters have described some of the advantages of being a non-porn user, but in the interests of fairness, it's necessary to give a balanced account. Therefore, the next section will list the advantages of being a porn user. 12.1 Advantages of being a porn user. 49 Chapter 13 The Willpower Method. Trying to break an addiction to porn by using willpower is a trap. We think we must use our willpower because we've been led to believe that quitting a bad habit is very difficult. If we believe this, then naturally quitting porn must be difficult too. The truth is that quitting porn is ridiculously easy. The reason why it appears difficult is because we still believe any or all of several factors. Porn is enjoyable and provides real pleasure. Porn provides relaxation and relief from anxiety. Porn is a legitimate way to compensate for lack of real sex. We'll be deprived of something of value if we quit using porn. Withdrawal from porn is legitimate suffering that we must survive in order to quit for good. Quitting porn will leave a void in our lives. We'll be more bored and inactive than ever without porn to fill our free time. Running a mile in 4 minutes is difficult. You'll have to undergo years of training, and even then, you probably won't be able to achieve it. To quit porn, all you have to do is stop watching it. No one forces you to masturbate, and unlike food or water, it isn't needed for survival. If you want to quit porn, why should it be difficult? It isn't, it's extremely easy. Porn users make it difficult for themselves to quit by trying to do so through use of willpower or any method which does not debunk the belief that they're making some sort of sacrifice by quitting. We don't decide to become porn addicts. No one who curiously looks at pornographic websites for the first time has made the choice to become addicted to them for the rest of their lives. Because we never decided to become addicted, until proven otherwise, we're convinced we can stop using porn whenever we want to. At first, we'll watch porn only when we want to, on special occasions. Before we realize it, we're not only visiting those sites regularly, we're masturbating to them daily. At that point, porn has become a part of our daily lives. We'll begin to believe that we're entitled to having frequent orgasms, the feelings of sexual gratification achieved through porn use. It doesn't become immediately obvious to us that the same porn content isn't providing the same degree of arousal we experienced at first. Unconsciously, we begin venturing into more disgraceful genres of porn, viewing things that would have made us sick if we saw them on day one. 50 It usually takes a long time to realize that we're addicted to porn, because we suffer from the illusion that porn users watch porn because they enjoy it, not because they need to. When we're not enjoying porn, which is whenever we don't have access to unlimited amounts of new and more stimulating types of porn, we're under the illusion we can stop whenever we want to. This is a trap. I don't enjoy porn, so I can stop when I want to. Only you never seem to want to stop, because you're afraid that if you do, you'll never get to see all the new and exciting porn content that's out there. Maybe there's a better video clip than the best one you've seen so far. Maybe there's an actress you've never seen who checks all the boxes in your deepest fantasies. It's usually not until we actually try to quit porn that we realize a problem exists. The first attempts usually come in the early days, perhaps due to noticing the first signs of detrimental health effects. If the porn user has come across scientific material or online communities listing off the health effects of porn addiction, they'll start fighting a tug-of-war battle with themselves, trying to resist temptations and feeling deprived but also feeling guilty and ashamed with themselves. This is what happens when someone tries to quit porn using the willpower method. The tug-of-war goes on and on, with the time between porn sessions varying depending on the person's strength, but the addiction remaining in place. The willpower method is difficult because for most of our lives, we've adopted a head in the sand, I'll stop tomorrow approach. At odd times, something will prompt us to consider quitting porn. It could be concerns about health, virility, an onset of self-analysis, or even realizing we don't actually enjoy porn anymore. Whatever the reason, we'll weigh up the pros and cons of using porn. Rational assessment will reveal what we've known all along. The conclusion is heavily one-sided: stop using porn. If you were to sit down and give points for the advantages of quitting porn and compare them to the disadvantages of quitting porn, the total point count for quitting would far outweigh the disadvantages. Employ Pascal's wager, which is, by quitting porn, you're losing nothing and furthermore, you're gaining so much. Although the porn user knows that they'll be better off as a non-porn user, the belief that they're making a sacrifice by quitting trips them up. This belief is an illusion, but it's powerful. They don't know why, but the porn user believes that during the good and bad times of life, porn appears to help. Even before they start their attempt to quit, societal brainwashing reinforced by the brainwashing from their own addiction reinforces their belief that porn is difficult to give up. Hearing stories of those who quit porn for many months but eventually went back to it, bolster the porn user's belief that they're losing out on something when they try to quit. Because they believe they are depriving themselves, instead of starting off in freedom from addiction feeling great, porn addicts who try to quit using the willpower method start off instead with feelings of doom and gloom, as if trying to climb Mr. Everest. Instead of saying, "This is amazing. I don't need porn anymore," they say, "I hope I can make it, let's see how far I can go without porn." Many porn users start the attempt by apologizing to their wives or girlfriends, "Look, I'm trying to give up porn. I'll probably be irritable for the next couple of weeks, try to bear with me." Attempting to quit porn like this is doomed from the start. 51. Let's assume the porn user trying to quit using willpower survives a few days without a porn session. They're getting their energy back and starting to recover. They haven't opened their favorite websites for a while and are consequently getting aroused by normal stimulus they'd previously been too numb to notice. The reasons they decided to stop in the first place are rapidly disappearing from their thoughts. It's like seeing a bad road accident whilst driving. The horror of it reminds you to slow down for a while, but soon enough you're stomping your foot on the throttle again when you're about to be late for an appointment. The tug of war begins again. On one side is the brain's craving for more dopamine, the illusion of enjoyment through porn, and the belief that they're missing out on that enjoyment. On the other side is the porn user's logical reasoning, knowing fully well that what they're about to do is pointless, harmful, and only delaying their full recovery. The same person who was a few hours or days earlier listing all the reasons to quit is now desperately searching for any excuse to start again. "Life is short, I should let myself have this. I made it pretty far, I deserve a break. I should wait until after Christmas, after my holidays/tests, after this stressful event in my life to quit permanently. No one can survive without sex." Brainwashed by well-meaning people who don't consider the distinction between amative and propagative parts of sex. My brain is too wired to resist these cravings due my past porn use. I need to slowly decrease my usage and quit gradually. The urges are too strong and made me give in to them. At this stage, the porn user has almost assuredly opened up the internet browser, their schizophrenia increasing by the millisecond as the tug of war rages on. On one side, there's the tremendous relief in ending the cravings for porn as the addict finally gets their fix. On the other side, the orgasm is awful, the porn user cannot understand why they're doing it, and they immediately regret resetting themselves to start all over in their recovery again. This is why the user thinks they lack willpower. Because they couldn't hold out longer and deprive themselves even more, they start to believe they are weak. In fact, quitting porn has nothing to do with lack of willpower. All anyone has to do is realize that they're not depriving themselves of anything by quitting porn. No willpower is required to stop doing something you don't want to do. It's only when the porn user tries to force themselves to quit, in spite of not really wanting to, that they fall into the willpower trap, get nowhere, discourage themselves with each assured failure, and fall into pits of dark despair. When trying to quit using willpower, the misery the porn user experiences isn't due to withdrawal, though initially triggered by it. The actual agony is the constant tug of war in the mind caused by doubt, uncertainty, and fear. Because the porn user feels like they're making a sacrifice and depriving themselves of something 52 they want, they fear a future without porn. Life ahead looks bleak and dull without porn. This is complete delusion and evidence of brainwashing. Another factor making quitting so difficult using the willpower method is the belief that porn addicts must abstain and wait for something to happen. If your objective is passing a driving test, as soon as you've passed the test, it's certain you've achieved your objective. Under the willpower method, the porn user's internal narrative is, if I can go long enough without internet porn, the urge to watch it will eventually disappear. You can see this in practice in online forums where addicts talk about their streaks or days of abstinence. Although there's no physical pain, the agony the user undergoes is mental and caused by fearful uncertainty. How long will the craving last? How will I deal with urges? How will I cope with stress in future? How will I get the orgasms I need? With the willpower method, the user is waiting for things to improve while they mope. Because they didn't actually want to quit porn but are being forced to or are forcing themselves to, internet porn starts to appear as a forbidden fruit, becoming more and more precious. In fact, if a porn user can survive for a few weeks without using porn, the craving for it disappears. However, if the false belief that porn is enjoyable and pleasurable remains in place, the memory of how wonderful it is will remain in mind. At this time, many porn users who quit porn with willpower, feeling confident that they've won, decide to take a peek to prove it. In fact, they'd quit, but have hooked themselves again. With the willpower method, you're just denying yourself something that you still desire to have. But with this method, you're also making sure you find no value in it. When you find no value in something, it not only requires zero willpower to quit, you can quit immediately with no feelings of deprivation or fears. Porn users who manage to quit using the willpower method tend to find it a long and difficult road because they've never addressed how they've been brainwashed. Long after the physical addiction has died, the user is still miserable because they're quitting unwillingly. Eventually, if they survive this long-term torture, they will finally accept that life goes on and can be enjoyable without porn. However, with the willpower method, there are significantly more failures than successes. Some who succeed go through their lives in vulnerable states, left with significant amounts of brainwashing making them believe that porn does in fact give them a benefit. This explains why many porn users who've stopped for long periods end up starting again later on. 53 Because they haven't debunked the belief that quitting porn is a sacrifice, many ex-porn users who quit using willpower will have the occasional porn session as a special treat or to convince themselves how strong their self-control is. It does exactly that, but as soon as their session ends, the dopamine starts to leave and a little voice at the back of their mind begins driving them towards another one. Too late, they're addicted again. Here comes an extensive binge and the tug of war which was never resolved, reappears. 54 Chapter 14 Beware of cutting down. Many porn users resort to gradually reducing porn usage as a stepping stone towards actually quitting or as an attempt to control their cravings. Many recommend cutting down or a porn diet as a way to feel a tiny bit of the benefits of quitting porn without actually quitting. Using cutting down as a stepping stone to stopping is pointless. Attempts to cut down without actually quitting will keep us trapped for the remainder of our lives. Generally, cutting down follows failed attempts to stop. After a few hours or days of abstinence, the user says something like, "I can't face these urges anymore, the thought of going to sleep without relieving this agony is unbearable, so from now on I'll just use porn once in 4 days. If I can follow this porn diet, I can either hold it there or cut down even further." This is a terrible position to be in for the following reasons. Now they're stuck with not only being addicted to internet porn but also purposefully keeping the cravings for porn strong and powerful. They waste their time constantly waiting for the opportunity to have their next porn session. In addition to the normal stresses of life, now they're causing themselves more stress by trying to deprive themselves but not fully. They reinforce the misconception that porn is enjoyable by using it as a reward for abstaining in between scheduled porn sessions. They willingly subjugate themselves to porn by allowing it to govern their schedules and lives. By cutting down instead of quitting outright, the porn user reinforces their false belief that they're using porn for enjoyment. Now they've set up a structure where porn is used as a reward for certain behavior. They wait for each session, and the longer they wait, the more enjoyable each session appears to become. Of course, the enjoyment in each porn session isn't provided by the session itself. It comes from ending the agitation caused by the craving and only lasts as long as the porn session before starting over again. The primary difficulty in quitting porn isn't the dependency on dopamine. That part is easy. Porn users will stop using porn regularly without difficulty for days on end on various occasions: the death of a loved one, business ventures, vacations, extended trips and travel, when family is visiting, etc. They'll easily go 10 days without access to porn and it doesn't bother them at all. They won't even feel withdrawal symptoms. But when they try to go the same 10 days while having full access to porn and no reason to abstain other than forcing themselves to, they'll feel deprived, agitated, irritable, and unable to resist the craving. 55 Porn users can pass through lingerie shops and swimming pools filled with scantily clad people without inconvenience. Many will easily abstain when they need to sleep on the couch to temporarily make space for a visitor or are visiting someone themselves. In fact, porn users who wish they could quit get a secret pleasure out of going for long periods without using it. It gives them hope that perhaps one day they'll stop wanting it. This proves that the real obstacle with quitting porn isn't dopamine withdrawal or need for sexual gratification. The problem is believing in misconceptions, brainwashing, and the illusion that internet porn is some sort of reward and life will never be the same without it. Far from helping you quit internet porn, cutting down only continues the pattern of insecurity and misery, further convincing you that you're missing out on all the porn you haven't seen yet and there's no way you'll be happy without seeing it. There is little more pathetic than a porn user who's trying to cut down on their porn usage without dealing with their belief system and brainwashing. They're suffering from the delusion that the less porn they watch, the less they will want to watch. But unless they deal with their value system, the reverse is true. The less they watch porn, the longer they will feel deprived of their secret pleasure and the more will relish in the relief of their self-sacrifice. Consider this: what is the moment of failure for someone who is trying to quit porn? Obviously, someone trying to quit porn fails to do so when they orgasm to porn. What is the most precious moment for porn users on a 4-day porn diet trying to cut down? That's right, the same orgasm to porn that they've been waiting 4 days to experience. Removal of brainwashing and false beliefs is essential before you can move on from that final porn session and start living life in freedom. Unless you've removed the illusion that you enjoy porn, there's no way you can prove it afterwards without getting hooked again. Trying to cut down is not only ineffective, but is a worse form of torture. It doesn't work, because initially the user hoped that by using porn less and less, they'll reduce their desire to watch entirely. But the nature of any addiction is wanting more and more, not less and less. Therefore, in order to cut down, the user has to exercise willpower for the rest of their lives. Knowing what we know about the willpower method, while possible, this is a very difficult road, filled with struggles. Quitting porn entirely is far easier and less painful than trying to quit by cutting down. The difficulty in quitting porn isn't caused by the dopamine addiction. This is easy to cope with. The difficulty is the mistaken belief that porn gives you pleasure. This is brought about initially by brainwashing received from society before we started using porn, further reinforced by the actual addiction. All cutting down does is reinforce the fallacy further, to the extent that porn ends up dominating our lives completely and convincing us that the most precious thing we have is our next scheduled orgasm to porn. 56. The handful of cases that do succeed have been achieved by a relatively short period of cutting down, followed by quitting cold turkey. These porn users quit in spite of cutting down, not because of it. All it did was prolong the agony. Failed attempts leave porn users nervous wrecks and even more convinced they're addicted for life. This is usually enough to keep them binging on porn for a while before the next attempt to quit. There is one useful thing that cutting down demonstrates. It is that there is no such thing as the odd or occasional visit to internet porn sites. Porn addiction is a chain reaction that will last the rest of your life unless you make a positive effort to break it. 57. Chapter 15. Just one peek. The idea that you can have an occasional peek at porn without being affected is a myth for two reasons. An ex-porn user who wants to have just one peek proves that they're not an ex-porn user, merely a porn user who is depriving themselves of something they still want. Someone who is truly and happily free from porn addiction doesn't have a need for just one peek. For porn users trying to quit, it's the thought of having a one-time special porn session that often prevents them from being able to quit. If they haven't yet dealt with their belief systems and brainwashing, porn users who are trying to abstain from porn using the willpower method might fantasize about having a special porn session after a long conference trip, a hard day at work, a fight with family, or if your partner rejects your request for sex. But there's no such thing as just one peek. Porn addiction is a chain reaction that will last the rest of your life unless it's broken. The belief that it's possible to have a random porn session after a period of abstinence usually sends the porn user right back into a long binge. Whenever you think about porn, you should see a lifetime spent masturbating in front of a screen creating hopelessness, frustration, anxiety, fear, and self-resentment. Good and bad times in life happen, with or without porn, but get it clearly in your mind, porn isn't either good or bad. With porn, you're either in for a lifetime of misery or you quit and escape it. Ask any porn user, if you had the opportunity to go back to the time before you ever watched porn, knowing what you know now, would you have looked? The answer is, of course not. Yet every porn user has that choice every day of their life. Stop fooling yourself. You can quit porn, anybody can. It's ridiculously easy, but in order to do so, there are certain fundamentals to get clear in your mind. There's nothing to give up, there is nothing you're depriving yourself of, there's no sacrifice to be made, and there's no need to fantasize about having just one peek. With porn use, you're either in for a lifetime of addiction or you're free and have no need for it at all. There's nothing different about you, it isn't a matter of having strong willpower or not, and any user can find it easy to quit. 58. Many porn users believe they have addictive personalities. This usually happens as a result of reading excessive amounts of shocking brain science. There's no such thing as an addictive personality. No one is born with a need to masturbate to video clips and become addicted to them. It's the stimulus that hooks you, not the nature of your character or personality. It's essential to remove this belief because if you believe you're a type of person who easily becomes addicted and finds it difficult to quit, you'll use this excuse to justify your vice. It's essential to remove all of this brainwashing. 59 Chapter 16 Casual porn users, teenagers, non-porn users. We tend to believe only heavy porn users are truly addicted and the casual porn user is better off. We hear casual porn users bragging, "I can go all week without a session, it doesn't really bother me." We wish we were like that. The fact is, no porn user enjoys being a user. Never forget, no porn user ever decided to become one. Casual or otherwise, golfers brag about how often they can play. But why do porn users brag about how little they need to use porn? If less porn is the criterion for success, then surely the true accolade would be to use no porn at all. If someone said to you, "I can go all week without carrots and it doesn't bother me in the slightest," you'd think you were talking to a nutcase. If I enjoyed carrots, why would I want to go all week without them? If I didn't enjoy them, why would I eat them at all? When a porn user makes a comment about surviving a week without a porn session, they're trying to convince both themselves and you that they don't have a problem. But there would be no need to make a statement like that if they didn't have a problem. Translated, this statement means, I managed to survive a whole week without porn. Like every porn user, they wish they could survive the rest of their lives with porn. Having been able to survive for only a week, can you imagine how precious the session must have been afterwards, having been depriving themselves for an entire week? This is why casual porn users are just as addicted as heavy porn users. With casual users, not only is the illusion of pleasure greater, but they have less incentive to quit because they spend less time watching porn and are therefore less vulnerable to health risks. They may occasionally experience porn-induced erectile dysfunction, but are unsure what caused it and will probably blame it on other factors. Remember, the only pleasure porn users get is in the search and seek dopamine cycle and relieving the withdrawals from the previous porn sessions, as has already been explained. The pleasure derived is an illusion. If you have an itch, the natural tendency is to scratch it. As the brain's reward circuits become increasingly tolerant to dopamine and opiates, the natural tendency is to edge, escalate, binge, novelty seek, shock seek, etc., in order to procure the same amount of stimulation as before. 60. It's easy to assume that heavy porn users are weak and incapable of limiting their porn intake. However, heavy porn users should keep in mind that most casual porn users are simply incapable of binging, lacking the imagination and stamina to do so. Some of these once-a-week porn users are just physically unable to do more because their jobs and commitments won't allow them to use porn more frequently. All you enjoy in porn is ending the craving that started before it, whether that's the almost imperceptible physical craving or the mental torture of not being allowed to scratch the itch you feel entitled to scratch. Internet porn is poison, because you only suffer the illusion of enjoying it after you've experienced a period of abstinence. When you're using it several times a day, you know it's destroying you, but you can't stop, so you start resenting yourself. Similar to hunger or thirst, the longer you suffer with the craving, the greater the pleasure when it's finally relieved. But it's a mistake to believe that porn is just a harmless habit. Many porn users think, if I can keep this habit down to a certain level, only using it on special occasions, my brain and body will accept it. Then, I can keep using porn occasionally or even reduce my usage further if I want to. Don't believe this line of thinking. The habit doesn't exist. Porn is an addiction. The addict's natural tendency is to relieve the pain of withdrawal, not endure it. To hold your porn usage at a reduced level would require you to exercise tremendous amounts of discipline and willpower for the rest of your life, and you will surely fail due to the nature of willpower. Willpower fatigues just like a muscle, when exerted over a long duration. Your brain's reward center becomes more and more tolerant and numb to dopamine and opiates, it wants more and more, not less and less. As porn usage gradually raises the bar on what your brain considers stimulating, you'll become less and less able to manage life without regular porn sessions. At some point, one side will give in, either your brain's craving for stimulation with porn, or your self-imposed porn diet. One is a chemical process at the core of human behavior, designed over millions of years to incentivize reproductive action and propagation the human race. The other side is your weakened willpower, sapped by widespread dopamine-induced brain receptor shutdown. Guess which side is going to win in the end? This is why, in the early days, we can use porn or leave it behind at will. If we notice something unwelcoming about it mentally or physically, we just stop. Don't envy someone who watches porn only once every 24 hours. To them, porn appears to be the most precious thing on earth, a forbidden fruit. For many years this person will fight a tug of war with themselves, unable to stop using, yet frightened to use, even though they would like to. Look at this situation logically. Either there's a genuine value or pleasure in porn or there isn't. If there is, why do we all experience this internal tug of war? Why are we jealous of people who have never been addicted to porn? On the other hand, if there's no genuine value or pleasure, why bother watching porn at all? 61 Here is a case of a once in 4 days porn user. I'm 40 years old, I've suffered porn-induced erectile dysfunction with real women. It's been a while since I had a full erection. Before going on the once in 4 days porn diet, I used to sleep soundly through the night after using porn. Now I wake up every hour of the night and it's all I can think about. Even when I'm asleep, I dream about my favorite video clips. On days after my scheduled porn session I feel pretty down. My significant other would leave me alone because I'm so bad-tempered, and if she can't leave, she won't have me in the house. I go for jogs but my mind's blurry and just wants another porn session. On the scheduled porn session day, I begin planning earlier in the night, getting very irritated if something disrupts my plans. I'll back out of conversations and give in to arguments at work and home just so I can get away and have my session. I remember occasions when I'd pick silly fights with my significant other. I wait for 10 o'clock and when it arrives my heart is beating so fast. I don't start the deed right away, as there are new videos that have been added, so I need to shop around. My mind tells me that since I've starved myself for 4 days, I deserve a special clip to finish with. Eventually I settle for 1 or 2, but want it to last so that I can survive through the next 4 days. I make the porn session last at least a couple hours before finishing the deed. This poor man has no idea that he's treating himself with poison. First, suffering forbidden fruit syndrome and then forcing his brain to flood with more dopamine. His dopamine receptors aren't as cut down as that of a heavy porn user, but he's doing a much better job of rewiring his brain to crave porn by searching for more novelty and edging in order to survive the next 4 days. You probably picture this man as a pathetic imbecile, but this isn't true. As a former athlete, ex-military sergeant, he didn't choose to become addicted to anything. However, upon returning from war he trained as an IT technician in a veterans rehab program. After entering the civil workforce, he was a well-paid IT professional and was given a laptop to take his work home. Famous socialites had leaked their porn videos online and all his co-workers were talking about it. He started looking out of curiosity at first. Then he found all sorts of other videos to look at. Eventually he was spending more and more time online after work. He worked out less, it was a lot easier to get dopamine by watching porn. His mental and physical state started to decline and then the relationship problems started. This case is far from unique. There are tens of thousands of similar stories. If they knew, many of his friends and acquaintances would envy him for being a once in 4 days man rather than a multiply times a day man like them. If you think this couldn't happen to you, stop kidding yourself, it's already happening. 62 Like other addicts, porn users lie to themselves often. They have to. Even casual porn users indulge more times than they'll admit to. Read Reddit, Nofap, and PMO rebooting forum stories from casual porn users and you'll find that they're either counting days or waiting to fail. You don't need to envy casual porn users or once in 4 days user. Being completely free is better than both. Take the following log. It started with a simple challenge to not touch my penis for a day and being unable to do it. Failing this simple challenge proved to me that I was still placing value in porn. I had to demolish my misconceptions about porn and see it for what it really is, a chain-looped addiction providing nothing but the next craving. I don't think about masturbation anymore, it doesn't cross my mind. That is possible, I promise you. Freedom awaits those who stop trying to quit with willpower and just allow themselves to believe in the truth. Teenagers are generally finding it more difficult to quit using porn, not because it's actually more difficult from an effort standpoint, but because they don't believe they're hooked. As we have seen, an attempt to quit will immediately proves them wrong. But I don't feel the need to quit because I actually enjoy it. You could hear this statement from any addict on the face of the earth when confronted about quitting their drug of choice. The brainwashing is very powerful. Getting free is easy. Once you see the answer, you have it, that porn is a trap, that you don't enjoy it, and you just need it to relieve the cycle of cravings caused by it. But you still have to choose to see the truth. Parents of children who loathe internet porn shouldn't have a false sense of security. All children loathe and are disgusted by porn at the beginning. At one point, you did too. Don't be fooled by scare campaigns either, the trap is the same as it always was. Children don't know that internet porn is a super stimulus. They don't know that one peek, if unguarded, can cost them years of their lives. At some stage they may be influenced by a partner, classmate, or work colleague who's already been watching porn. Misery loves company. It helps us rationalize an addiction when we see others enslaved to it like we are. Society's failure to prevent adolescents from becoming addicted to internet porn and other drugs is one of the most disturbing facets of addiction. Don't become complacent in this matter. It's necessary to protect adolescents. Their brains are much more susceptible to rewiring at their young age. A good resource on the neuroscience behind pornography addiction is the book Your Brain on Porn by Gary A. Wilson. Even if you only suspect that your child might be watching porn, read it. In any case, the book provides excellent guidance to assist in gaining understanding to help someone escape. 63 Chapter 17 The user with a relationship. This type of porn user merits a separate chapter. Consider the case of this porn user and the effects porn addiction had on his relationship. I was 3 weeks into one of my failed attempts to quit. The attempt had been triggered by my wife's worry about my unreliable erections and lack of interest in sex. I told her that it wasn't her, just job pressure. She said, "I know you've handled the work pressure before, but how would you feel if you were me and had to watch someone you love systematically destroying themselves?" It was an argument I found irresistible, hence the attempt to quit. She knew I wasn't cheating, but in a way, this felt worse. The attempt to quit ended after 3 weeks after I had a heated argument with an old friend. It didn't register until years later, but I believe my devious mind deliberately triggered that argument. Afterward, I felt justifiably aggravated, and I don't believe it was coincidence, as I had never argued with this particular friend before, nor have I since. It was clearly me unconsciously trying to create a reason to use my addiction. Regardless, I had my excuse. I desperately needed a release, and it didn't matter how I got it. My wife was busy and I had feelings of orgasm entitlement, so I convinced myself it would be okay if I restricted myself by avoiding hardcore porn sites and only watching YouTube videos. However, later that night, my wife wanted to make love. I was already spent from masturbating to orgasm over YouTube videos, so I invented a headache. I can't bear to think of the disappointment this caused my wife. Although I had made it 3 weeks before that, I quickly returned to my old ways, with YouTube becoming my new destination. I remember feeling quite pleased at the time, thinking that it was at least cutting my consumption down by using softcore content. Eventually, my wife accused me again of ignoring her in bed. I hadn't realized it, but she described the times I'd caused an argument and stormed out of the house. How I would take 2 hours to purchase some minor item and how I would pretend to have muscle soreness. I'd made feeble excuses to avoid making love to her because I was getting much more reliable orgasms online. This case is so pitiful because it includes several of the most miserable elements of porn addiction. First, using a platform like YouTube allows the porn user to believe in the fallacy that they're more noble than those disgusting hardcore porn users. Even though they still feel deprived by not using hardcore porn, they get a strange pleasure out of restricting themselves to more softcore content. Their porn diet will never last, of course, but it's much easier to justify a porn session at the time. 64. Secondly, by not allowing themselves to use the porn they really want, these types of porn users string themselves out, never fully committed, but never quitting either. By purposefully keeping some forbidden fruit out of reach, they keep themselves coming back for just a little more. Thirdly, by using porn to achieve sexual gratification, the porn user with a relationship causes themselves major losses in self-respect. They could be a very honest and caring person, but the addiction causes them to deceive their loved one over and over. Addicted porn users face problems with websites like Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram. Driven by novelty-seeking dopamine urges, they trick themselves into believing they're on a safe site. But the thrill of porn is in the seeking, not the attaining, and the brain doesn't care where its fix comes from. For the porn user, soft content received in their various online feeds gives them fleeting relief of their withdrawal cravings, keeping them hooked and waiting to finally have a real porn session. You may have watched the TV series Columbo. The theme of each episode is similar. The villain, usually a wealthy and respected businessman, has committed what he believes is the perfect murder. His confidence in remaining undetected receives a boost when he discovers that the unimpressive-looking detective Columbo is in charge of the case. Columbo has the practice of closing the door after finishing his interrogation, having assured the suspect that he's in the clear. But before the satisfied look has disappeared from the murderer's face, Columbo reappears, saying just one small point, "Sir, which I'm sure you can explain." The suspect stammers, and from that point onward he knows that Columbo will eventually wear him down until he confesses to the crime. No matter how ghastly the crime was, when Columbo begins to wear him out, our sympathies were with the murderer. The case of the noble porn user with a relationship is similar. The tension of not allowing themselves to cross the hardcore line to get the porn they rightly deserve, then wondering where the pleasure was after finishing the deed. After spending themselves for an illusion of pleasure, fearful of losing control, fearful of being caught in the act, and finally returning to bed, only to be stalked by guilt for betraying their partners. As soon as the safe YouTube videos no longer satisfy you due to brain desensitization and lack of novelty, you can be certain that you'll be visiting more hardcore porn sites to satisfy the cravings. The final humiliation and shame being when that certainty becomes a fact, there's an immediate return of binging and even deeper relationship problems. Isn't it great being a porn user? 65 Chapter 18 No PMO and counting days. Mental and physical health have always been the main reasons why porn users want to quit using porn. We probably didn't need scientific research and knowledge in neurochemistry to teach us that internet porn is addictive and harmful. Our bodies are the most sophisticated objects on the planet. After the first few attempts and failures to quit porn, it becomes obvious to any porn user that they have a problem. Remember, porn users aren't stupid people. No one decided to trade the first few porn sessions for a lifetime of slavery and addiction. The reason why we become addicted to porn is because the dopamine cycle overlaps with our brain's essential programming. Internet porn is highly available, free, and streaming 24 hours a day. Porn was once considered a fringe activity, but that was when the images were in magazines and procuring videos required an expensive TV screen, VCR, and a trip to the local VHS store where everyone could see you buying porn. In those days, men didn't admit they masturbated. Being a jerk or a wanker was a derogatory term. In pubs, clubs, and bars, men are proud to take a woman home and have real sex. Today, the position is reversing. Coupled with cultural brainwashing which blurs the line between the amative and propagative aspects of sex, making it all about achieving orgasms, the internet porn addict realizes he doesn't need a woman. This is a frightening realization, and the vast majority of porn users know something is wrong with this belief. Only a very small segment of society fully commits to substituting porn for real sex in the long run. One of the most significant trends in online porn recovery groups is the increasing emphasis on the antisocial aspects of porn. The days when a man boasted about having many sexual partners and orgasms every day is being replaced with the realization that men are enslaved to porn-influenced mindsets which blur the lines between amative and propagative sex and value only orgasms above all else. Porn users who continue to use porn even after being educated on its dangers are too afraid to quit completely. Others courageous step up and attempt to quit using one of the popular methods. One being quitting all PMO entirely, with or without partners. Practices that separate the amative and propagative parts of sex such as semen retention and kuritsa are discussed and adopted in attempts to reverse societal brainwashing and artificially enhanced cravings for orgasms. Many failures to quit porn using methods like this are in reality productive learning experiences, somewhat benefiting people practicing them even if they failed to quit porn entirely. Once you start the no PMO route, you'll find the best fit that applies to your life. It's encouraged to devise your own plan on orgasms after 66 understanding and practicing sexual separation. Whatever route you take, you'll see value in limiting the number of times you flush your brain with chemicals through artificially induced orgasms. Various popular online porn recovery communities founded by non-porn users are dedicated to quitting not only porn, but also masturbation. These sites are ultimately beneficial to those who are trying to quit, but most focus only on using willpower to quit. Using willpower creates the obsession with counting how many days in a row a porn user can survive without it, a practice that creates self-pity, feelings of being deprived, and lack of self-respect when the streak is broken. The brainwashing is alive and well. The porn user is still fighting the tug of war. As people using willpower to quit begin to fail, a domino effect takes place. Other porn users watching each other fail to quit, start to believe that it requires nearly superhuman effort to quit. They start looking for the opportune moment to start another attempt. Everything has to be perfect. They have to feel perfect. Any little up or down in life will ruin their equilibrium and make them fail again. Efforts to quit porn in this way are not in vain. Much self-discovery and learning will result. Gaining freedom from porn using the willpower method is possible, albeit with lots of self-torture as they try to force themselves to quit the act itself, but do not deal with the desire and craving for it. The method in this book works because it focuses on shutting down the desire and craving first, before quitting the act. No willpower is required to quit doing an activity you no longer want to do. You just stop. 67 Chapter 19 Timing. By now, you should be getting the point. Porn use is doing you no good, and now is the right time to stop. Timing is important. You have to quit while the facts are fresh in your mind. Society treats internet porn flippantly as a slightly distasteful habit that doesn't injure your health. This is untrue. It's an addiction, a disease, and destroyer of relationships. For many, porn addiction is the worst thing that happens to them in their lifetimes. You need to make a plan to quit. Now, identify the times or occasions when porn appears to be the most important to you. If you're a business person who uses it for the illusion of stress relief, pick a relatively relaxed part of your schedule or a holiday. If you use porn mainly during boring or relaxing periods, the opposite logic applies. Pick a normally paced section of your schedule. Regardless, take the attempt seriously and make it the most important thing in your life. Look ahead for a period of 3 weeks and anticipate any upcoming event that might lead to failure. Occasions like conference trips, your partner being out of town, a big social event, going to a wedding/funeral, etc. Events like these need not deter you, providing you can anticipate them and ensure you won't feel deprived. Don't attempt to use your willpower to cut down on your porn use as an alternative to quitting entirely. This will only create the illusion that you are sacrificially denying yourself from an enjoyable activity. Whatever you do, do not procrastinate and say, "Not now, maybe later. Work out your timetable and decide right now. Remember, you aren't giving up anything. On the contrary, you're about to receive wonderful gains. For years, the medical profession has viewed porn as harmless without knowing the difference between the tamer static porn of the 1950s vs the latest virtual reality streaming experience. Although every porn user uses internet porn to relieve dopamine craving, it's not addiction to the neurotransmitter that hooks the user, but the brainwashing. An intelligent person could fall for a trick once, but only a fool would continue falling for the same trick even after they realize they're being fooled. Fortunately, most porn users aren't fools, they only think they are. Each individual user has their own private brainwashing. While the goal of the original book was to quit smoking, dealing with nicotine addiction, one of the most addictive drugs known to man, and these personal logs were collected from Reddit, Nofap, blogs, and forums, I was pleasantly surprised to realize that Alan Carr's original philosophy is still applicable. The accumulated knowledge and challenge that Alan Carr and myself undertook is how to communicate that knowledge to each individual user. I know every porn user can not only find it easy to quit, but can actually 68 enjoy the process. But merely knowing this is not only pointless but also exceedingly frustrating, unless I can make the porn user reading this realize it as well. Alan Carr in his original book explains his controversial advice. Many people have said to me, "You say, continue to smoke until you finish the book." This might encourage the smoker to purposefully take forever to read the book or just not finish it at all. Therefore, you should change the instruction. This sounds logical, but if the instructions were, quit immediately, most smokers wouldn't even start reading the book. I had a smoker consult me in the early days. He said, "I resent having to seek your help. I know I'm strong-willed. In every other area of my life I'm in control. Why is it that all these other smokers have been able to quit by using their own willpower, yet I have to come to you? I think I could do it on my own, if I could smoke while I was doing it." Society perpetuates the belief that quitting smoking is incredibly difficult. So, what does a smoker need when something is difficult? Their addiction, smoking. To the smoker, quitting smoking appears to be doubly difficult. Not only is there a difficult task to perform, which is hard enough, but the relief we normally rely on for such occasions isn't available. Perhaps the real beauty of this method is that you don't need to give up while going through the process. Get rid of all fears and doubts initially, so upon finishing the book, you're already enjoying freedom. Here's an analogy: my friend and I intend to swim together. We arrive at the pool at the same time, but rarely end up swimming together. The reason being, she immerses one toe at first and a full 30 minutes later is finally swimming. I think that's slow torture. I know in advance that at some stage, no matter how cold the water is, I'll have to brave it. I've learned to do it the easy way, diving straight in. But if I insisted that my friend also dive in right away, she wouldn't swim at all. Do you see the problem? One of the most subtle aspects of the porn trap is then when we have genuine stress in our lives, we decide it's not the right time to quit. Yet when we have no stress, we also have no desire to stop. Ask yourself, when you first started watching porn, did you decide that you'd continue to depend on it for the rest of your life? Of course not. Are you going to continue to use porn for the rest of your life without ever being able to quit? Of course not. Then when will you quit? Tomorrow? Next year? The year after? Isn't this what you've been asking yourself since you first realized you were addicted? Are you hoping that one morning you'll wake up and just not want to watch porn anymore? Stop kidding yourself. With any addiction you get progressively more addicted, not less addicted. Are you going to wait until getting out of bed is harder than masturbating? 69. Don't be fooled by thinking that now isn't the right time. Don't be fooled and think it'll be easier tomorrow. We believe that we live stressful lives, but in actuality we don't. We've taken most genuine stress out of our lives. When leaving home, you don't live in fear of being attacked by wild animals. Most of us don't wonder where our next meal will come from or if a roof will be over our heads tonight. Face the facts, our biggest fears are self-created. We fear the future without porn because we feel entitled to our regular supply of free orgasms. The most stressful period for any creature is early childhood and adolescence. But 3 billion years of natural selection has equipped us to cope with stress. Many people who grew up with difficult childhoods, learn to adjust and lead normal lives. It's cliché to say, if you haven't got your health, you've got nothing, but it's absolutely true. When you feel physically and mentally strong, you can enjoy the highs and handle the lows. There's confusion between responsibility and stress. Responsibility only becomes stressful when we don't feel strong enough to handle it. What destroys most isn't stress, jobs, or old age, but the addictions they turn to cope with them. Look at it this way, you've already decided you aren't staying in the trap for the rest of your life. Therefore, at some point, whether you find it easy or difficult, you'll have to go through the process of getting free. Porn isn't a habit for pleasure, it's a drug addiction and a disease. We've established that far from being easier tomorrow, it will get progressively worse. The time to get rid of it is now, or as near to now as you can manage. Just think of how quickly each week of our lives passes, that's all it takes. Think of how nice it'll be to enjoy the rest of your life without ever increasing shadows of guilt hanging over you. Provided you follow all the instructions, you won't even have to wait 5 days or 3 weeks. You'll not only find it easy to quit, you'll enjoy it. 70 Chapter 20 Will I miss the fun? No. Once the desire to use porn is dead, your body stops craving dopamine, and the chain reaction loop in your brain will start to fade due to lack of use. Any remaining brainwashing will vanish and you'll find yourself both physically and mentally better equipped to handle the stresses and strains of life, as well as enjoying good times to the fullest. The danger to our freedom is the societal influence of those who still demand orgasms as if it were food and oxygen. The grass is greener on the other side is a universal proverb which highlights the fact that even if we have no basis for the belief, we tend to think others have it better off than we do. Why, in the case of porn, where the disadvantages severely outweigh the illusionary advantages, would the ex-porn user envy those still demanding pornography, masturbation, and orgasm as a way to deal with life? With all the brainwashing from childhood until now, it's understandable why we've fallen into the porn trap. Upon realizing what a fool's errand it is and managing to quit the addiction, would we walk right back into the same trap? It's because of society's propagated belief that porn and sex are equal, sex is an entitlement, and being addicted to pornography is normal. The ex-porn user who hasn't dealt with this brainwashing experiences deprivation and longing for porn. The insecure void, along with deep-rooted fear that they won't have their convenient sexual outlet, that they might be single and without unearned orgasms for a while, causes feelings of anxiety and drives them to find relief in porn. The proof that this is all true is verified by the fact that people who have never been addicted to porn are happy to be free, and addicted porn users, even with their brainwashed minds, wish they'd never used porn in the first place. So why do some ex-porn users envy on these occasions? What about just one peek to recall how good it feels? Remember, just one peek doesn't exist. Stop seeing porn use as an isolated occasion, because it never is. Look at it from the point of view of the average porn user. They don't approve of themselves. If you could observe another porn user, it would be a wonderful boost to help you quit. Notice how quickly they open browser tabs and windows. Look how they quickly fast forward to important sections of their videos, quickly getting bored and running through dozens of videos from other genres. Notice particularly that the act is automatic, just impulse. Remember, they aren't enjoying it, it's just they can't enjoy themselves without it. 71 The next morning, when they wake up with a weakened will, lost energy, bleary eyes, and craving for more at the first sign of stress or responsibility, they'll wish they didn't give in. You know what this feels like. We've all been there. Porn users believe non-porn users feel deprived of the pleasure of porn because they do. It's not the non-user being deprived, but the poor addict. Of health, energy, money, confidence, courage, tranquility, freedom, and self-respect. You wouldn't envy a heroin addict. Your addiction won't get any better, each year it'll get exponentially worse. If you don't enjoy being a user today, you'll enjoy it even less tomorrow. There's nothing to miss out on, only more misery and guilt. 72 Chapter 22 Avoid false incentives. Remember, the primary reason why we find it difficult to quit porn is fear. A few years ago, when I was seriously considering how to quit porn, I had a moment of clarity and understood the thought of quitting porn permanently for the first time. Quitting porn permanently means I can never look at it again, never masturbate to it again, and never use it as a relief for dopamine cravings again, for as long as I live. When I first understood the full weight of that thought, I was very afraid. I was also surprised that I was afraid. I was thinking, how will I get my sexual gratification? If I don't always have girlfriends, how will I get regular sex? Clearly, I needed to resolve the societal brainwashing and false beliefs that I was harboring. Because of fear, the porn user starts to create incentives for quitting. This again, is using willpower. I will get a girlfriend so I don't need porn anymore. This line of thinking puts a goal which we greatly value on the same level as the addiction. By doing this, we elevate porn sessions to be just as meaningful as the romantic relationship that we're looking for. We intend the relationship to be merely a substitute for our porn addiction. How degrading for the person you end up dating. Furthermore, if the task of getting a girlfriend takes longer or ends up being harder than expected, we'll probably compromise with ourselves and reward ourselves with porn when we just get a date, even if it doesn't go well. All these little games are pointless. We must reject porn just for what it is, without attaching other value systems and incentives to it. Because our brains are powerful, our thoughts are clever, and our addiction is deep-rooted, we find it hard to isolate the addiction in our minds. Porn is not the same as sex, relationships, or pleasure. It's a dopamine addiction and dependency. When we can look at porn, see it for all it is, nothing more, nothing less, and fully know that we don't need it, then we can walk away from it. Creating incentives means setting up rewards for yourself if you abstain from porn for a certain period of time. This appears to be a logical and sensible approach, but it is a misstep. Any self-respecting porn user would rather continue watching porn every day than reward themselves with a gift of lesser value. Creating incentives for abstinence generates a painful situation for the porn user. Not only will they have to abstain from porn, they're not likely to enjoy the days without porn either because they've done nothing about their belief that porn is pleasurable. Creating incentives for abstaining from porn simply increase the feeling of the sacrifice the porn user feels and by association, the value of porn to them. Porn again becomes a forbidden fruit, something to attain and sacrifice themselves for. Some examples of false incentives: I'll quit porn to force myself to get a social life and more real sex. 73 I'll quit porn so that magical Nofap energy will help me to leap above my competitors and get the partner I want. I'll quit porn so I can commit myself to not wasting my energy and enthusiasm with porn in order to grow hunger in myself. Incentives like these can be effective in getting what you want, but once you do, and the goal has been accomplished, you'll feel deprived of porn. Again, because you never dealt with the value you place on it. Additionally, linking abstinence from porn to an incentive creates doubt in the porn user's mind, because if they don't achieve their incentive, or if it's harder to achieve than expected, they'll start questioning if it's worth it. Quitting porn was only bearable when they connected it with something else they also wanted, usually something to do with getting real sex as opposed to virtual sex. Once that thing is out of reach or is evidently more difficult than expected, they'll come right back to porn because they were never prepared to quit it. Another typical example of false incentives are online abstinence contests. They can help eliminate porn sessions for certain periods of time but generally fail to help in the long run because, 1. Why would you want to quit porn just because others are quitting? It's fine if all porn users in the contest genuinely want to quit at one particular time, but you can't force yourself to quit if you don't really want to. Until they're ready to actually quit, contests like these will help the porn user abstain for a while but also increases their desire to watch porn because they forget the negative side effects. 2. Dependency on using the willpower method creates situations where porn users try to resist and survive urges. If they give in, there's a sense of failure. Under the willpower method, one of the participants is bound to give up, providing the other participants with the excuse they have been waiting for. It's not their fault, they would have held out but Fred let them down. Another false incentive is the guru promise. It's true, quitting porn will give you happiness because you'll no longer be engaged in the tug of war and your brain will begin rewiring as well as regaining impulse controls. However, you will not become a sex god or win the lottery. Generally, no one except you cares in the slightest if you quit porn. If the job offer of 10 months of work for 12 months of salary per year, the risks of cutting down your brain's ability to cope with day-to-day stress and strains, putting yourself at odds with having a reliable erection, and the lifetime of mental and physical torture and slavery didn't stop them, then the few phony incentives above won't make the slightest bit of difference. They'll only make the sacrifice appear worse. Instead, concentrate on the other side. What am I getting out of it? Why do I need to watch porn? 74. Keep looking at the other side of the tug of war and keeping asking yourself, what is porn doing for me? Absolutely nothing. Why do I need it? You don't. You're only punishing yourself. It's Pascal's wager. You have nothing to lose, chances of big rewards, and overwhelmingly favorable odds. 75. Chapter 23. The Easy Way to Quit. This chapter contains instructions regarding the easy way to quit porn. Provided you follow the instructions, you'll find that quitting ranges from relatively easy to actually enjoyable. Provided you follow the instructions, it's easy to stop porn. All you have to do is 2 things. 1. Make the decision that you are never going to watch porn again. 2. Don't mope about it. Rejoice. Why do I need to read the rest of the book then? Why couldn't you have said that in the first place? If this was the message printed on the first page, you probably would have thrown this book in the trash and said, it's not that simple. Porn is a sinister trap. The main obstacle to quitting isn't the dopamine addiction. Dopamine addiction is certainly a problem, but it's not the primary one. Harboring false beliefs and brainwashing is the main problem. This is why it is absolutely essential to first destroy all the myths and delusions associated with porn, sex, orgasms, and our relationships with those things. Understand your enemies, know their tactics, and you'll easily defeat them. Having spent a substantial part of my life suffering through depression while attempting to quit porn, when I finally escaped, I went straight into freedom without looking back. It was enjoyable even when going through the withdrawal period. The withdrawal period feels more intense when you secretly know this won't be the last time you'll go through it. But when you really believe that porn has no place in your life anymore, when you see that it offers you no value, and all you gain in return for quitting is good things, you can breeze right through the withdrawal period and carry on with joy. Quitting porn was one of the most wonderful things that's happened in my life. My final attempt to quit was different. Like all porn users nowadays, I had been seriously thinking about how to quit. Up to then, whenever I'd failed, I consoled myself with the thought that it would be easier next time. It never occurred to me that I would have continued fighting this tug of war for the rest of my life. The thought of being addicted to porn for the rest of my life filled me with horror. Rather than opening up my internet browser subconsciously, I analyzed my feelings and confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't enjoying porn. I started noticing people living in other parts of the world or older people who obviously never had access or technical experience to become addicted to porn. Up until then, I'd always regarded non-porn users as wishy-washy, antisocial, and finicky people. However, when I examined their lives more closely, they appeared to be stronger, more relaxed, and able to enjoy the simple parts of life more. They also appeared to be able to cope with the stresses and strains of life and enjoy social 76 functions more than addicts like me. They certainly had more sparkle and zest in their eyes and body language than I did. I also started talking to ex-porn users, people who were addicted to porn but quit at some point. Until then, I'd always thought they had been forced to quit porn for various health or religious reasons, but secretly wished they could use porn again without problems. A few of them did say, "You get random cravings from time to time, but they are so few or far between they aren't worth bothering about." Most said, "Do I miss it? You must be joking. Life's never been better." Even failures were opportunities of growth for them. They didn't condemn themselves, instead they kept moving forward until they were free. Talking to ex-porn users destroyed another myth in my mind. I believed there was a weakness within me, that I just wasn't strong enough to quit, until I realized that every addict goes through this private nightmare. Basically, I said to myself, many people are quitting right now and getting on with their happy lives. I didn't need porn before I started using it, and I remember how much I had to watch before I became addicted. So why do I need to do it now? I didn't enjoy porn anymore, I was just using it to avoid the dopamine withdrawal symptoms and my fear of being deprived of my precious orgasms. Honestly, I resented the entire porn session ritual and didn't want to spend the rest of my life being the slave to this addiction. I said this to myself, whether you like it or not, you've completed your last porn session. I knew right from that point that I'd never use porn again. I wasn't expecting it to be easy, quite the opposite. I fully believed that I'd signed up for months of depression and spending the rest of my life having the occasional craving for porn. Instead, it has been absolute enjoyment right from the start. It took me a long time to work out why it was so easy and why I didn't feel terrible withdrawals like I did during other attempts to quit. The reason is that the dopamine withdrawals aren't as bad as we think they are. It's our doubts, fears, and uncertainty that makes quitting so difficult. The beautiful truth is that it's easy to quit porn. Indecision, fear, and self-pity makes it more difficult, even while still addicted. Porn users can go for relatively long periods at certain times without porn with no problem. It's only when they want it but can't have it that they suffer. This fact exposes the real problem: false belief, brainwashing, and fear, not dopamine addiction. Therefore, the key to making it easy is to make quitting certain and final. Not to hope it works, but to know you've kicked it, having made the decision. Once the decision is made, never doubt or question it. In fact, just the reverse, always rejoice in it. If you are certain you're done with porn for life, it will be easy. But how can you be certain? That's where the rest of the book comes in. There are essential points we must go over to ensure you're completely prepared to walk away from porn forever. To begin, 77 realize you can achieve it. The only person who can make you watch porn is you. In the end, only you can control your actions and reactions. There's absolutely nothing to lose. You don't lose pleasure, you don't lose a coping mechanism, and you don't lose sexual education. Once addicted, the pleasure is an illusion. You only cope with the cravings you create, and rather than educate, you put pressure on yourself to have a sex life that mimics the outrageous performances you watch online. Rather than miss out on anything, there are enormous positive gains to be made. Better health, more peace, the ability to relax, more time to actually live your life, and last but not least, you'll enjoy the good times more and be less miserable during the bad. There is no such thing as just one peak or just one porn session. Pornography addiction is a drug addiction, and just like any drug addiction, it starts a chain reaction which does not end until you end it. Don't see porn as a slightly embarrassing habit, but as a drug addiction. Face the fact that whether you like it or not, if you've tried to quit and failed, you're addicted. It won't go away because you bury your head in the sand. Remember, like all serious addictions, it not only lasts for life, but gets exponentially worse. It won't get any easier to quit tomorrow than it is today. Separate the disease, the neurological addiction, from the mindset of being a porn user. All porn users, if given the opportunity to go back to the time before they became hooked, would gladly take the opportunity. You have that opportunity today. Upon making the final decision to quit, you'll already be an ex-porn user. Once you've made that final decision, you've already achieved your objective. Don't sit around in self-induced misery waiting for the last traces of the brain's dependency on dopamine to dissolve. Get out and enjoy life immediately. Life is marvelous even when you're addicted, and each day you are free is even more amazing. The key to making it easy to quit is to be certain that you'll succeed. The dopamine withdrawal period is a maximum of 3 weeks. If you're in the correct frame of mind, rejoicing at having your life back, you'll find this ridiculously easy to get through. By this stage, if you've opened your mind as requested at the beginning, you'll have already decided you're going to escape. You should now have feelings of excitement, like a dog straining at the leash, unable to wait to break down the delta FOSB brain programming which keeps you craving for more porn-induced dopamine. If you have a feeling of doom and gloom, it'll be for one of the following reasons: you don't fully believe that quitting is a good idea. Reread the points above and ask yourself if you believe them to be true. If you still doubt, reread the appropriate sections of the book. You fear failing. Don't worry, just read on and you'll succeed. The whole business of internet porn is in selling illusions of pleasure. Intelligent people fall for illusions and mind tricks when they don't understand them, but once they do, the illusion loses all mystique and becomes uninteresting. 78 You agree with everything, but are still miserable. Don't be. Open your eyes. Something marvelous is happening. You're about to escape from the porn prison. It's essential to start with the correct frame of mind. It's marvelous, I'm an ex-porn user. All you have to do is keep yourself in this frame of mind during the withdrawal period. The next few chapters will deal with specific points to enable you to do so. After the withdrawal period, you won't have to remind yourself to think with the correct mindset anymore, you'll do it automatically. The only mystery in your life will be why you didn't see it before. An important warning: finish the book. This is essential. Even if you are excited, positive, and sure of success right now, you must finish the book. A withdrawal period of up to 3 weeks can cause misunderstandings. First, you may subconsciously feel you have to suffer for 3 weeks. You don't. Avoid the trap of thinking, somehow, I have to survive for 3 weeks and then I'll be fine. Nothing magic will actually happen after 3 weeks. You won't suddenly feel completely different. Yes, you'll have more energy, more patience, more joy, less stress, and everything we've talked about that ex-porn users obtain by quitting, but there isn't a magical switch at 3 weeks, 60 days, or 90 days that makes your life totally different than before. If you go into your attempt to quit porn with a negative mindset, wishing you didn't have to do this, you'll also have a negative mindset about it after 3 weeks are up. Essentially, if you can start right now by saying, I'm never going to use porn again, isn't it marvelous, and mean it, after 3 weeks porn cravings will vanish. Whereas if you say, if only I can survive these 3 weeks without porn, and mean it, you'll be thirsting like a man lost in the Sahara for just one more peek at your favorite porn site when the 3 weeks are up. Think of it this way: your brain wants to maintain the status quo. If you are under the belief that you are losing something good when quitting porn, you will obviously feel horrible. It's impossible to force yourself to do something completely willingly if your brain doesn't believe it's the right thing to do. This is why it's important to go through the trouble of completely removing the illusion that pornography gives you. That's how you know you're sacrificing nothing. It takes zero willpower to quit doing something you don't find any benefit or value in doing. 79 Chapter 24 The withdrawal period. For up to 3 weeks after your last porn session you may be subjected to withdrawal symptoms. These generally consist of 2 separate but distinct factors. 1. An empty, insecure, agitated feelings similar to hunger or craving, making you feel restless, like you must do something. 2. A state of being increasingly triggered by non-sexual external stimulus such as advertisements, TV commercials, music videos, news interviews, etc. Failure to understand and differentiate between these two factors will make it difficult to achieve success using the willpower method and is the reason why many fall back into the porn trap after long periods of abstinence. Although withdrawals from dopamine addiction don't cause physical pain, they're substantial enough to push someone with weakened willpower and impulse controls over the edge. These withdrawal symptoms are similar to the feelings of hunger after going a few hours without food. The stomach rumbles, but there isn't any physical pain. Even so, we're likely to become very irritable when deprived of food. Similarly, we become irritable when our addicted brains demand another dopamine rush. With the right frame of mind, the withdrawal pangs are easily overcome and will disappear very quickly. After abstaining for a few days on the willpower method, the craving for dopamine disappears quickly, it's gone in a few days. It's the second factor, brainwashing, false beliefs, and fear, that cause difficulty after the withdrawal symptoms have vanished. The porn user has built a habit of relieving withdrawal symptoms at certain times and occasions, which links certain situations with porn. If they usually watch porn at 9 p.m., their brains will learn to expect porn sessions around this time. When the clock nears 9 p.m., they'll get cravings. If they tend to watch porn on a laptop or phone in bed, being in this situation will trigger porn cravings. If trying to quit using the willpower method, the porn user believes they're making a sacrifice. They will fearfully wait for urges to leave, convincing themselves that they're powerless against them. With this attitude, far from removing these trigger mechanisms, they're actually increasing them. They wonder how long they have to survive before they become a no-fap god, paving the way for self-loathing and self-resentment when they fail. A common trigger is alone time, particularly after social events, especially if it was a romantic date and it didn't end in an orgasm. What should have been experienced as a calming and pleasant social occasion, leads them into a porn session because the brainwashing and orgasm entitlement mindset has not been dealt with. Outlasting the withdrawal symptoms and gaining freedom is possible with the willpower method, but very difficult. Porn users who succeed in this way, will eventually accept their lot and get on with life. However, since the brainwashing still remains, they may still crave porn on certain occasions even after years of freedom. This is yet another reason why it is absolutely essential to deal with the false beliefs and brainwashing in the beginning. This method is not magic. It will not eliminate all of your addiction triggers. Porn users who have not dealt with their brainwashing may regard internet porn as a placebo, thinking, I know porn does nothing for me, but if I think it does, then on certain occasions it will be helpful. A placebo, although giving no actual physical help, can be a powerful psychological aid to relieve genuine symptoms and is therefore perceived as a benefit. Internet porn and habitual masturbation, however, isn't a placebo. Why? Because porn creates the symptoms it relieves and eventually ceases to relieve them completely. A real placebo is harmless. Consider the case of someone who is not addicted to porn and experiences a breakup with their partner. It's quite common, even with the best intentions, to think, one porn session won't hurt anything and will help calm me down. However, even after the porn session is over, the original tragedy is still there. All that the porn provided was a fleeting psychological boost that could have been provided by a book or feel-good movie. Many non-porn users and ex-porn users have become re-addicted as a result of such occasions. You don't need the dopamine rush and are only torturing yourself further by continuing to regard it as some sort of benefit or coping mechanism. There's no need to pay for enjoyment with misery. Chasing orgasms doesn't make good relationships, but having been brainwashed by societal false beliefs and porn addiction, orgasms are the goal of relationships for the porn user. You don't have to be an orgasm-focused dopamine addict. If it happens as a natural result of fulfilling and enjoyable life events, that's wonderful, but we must be able to enjoy life even without constant orgasms too. Even after abandoning the belief that porn is pleasurable, many porn users think, if only there was clean internet porn. This line of thinking is a waste of time. It's yet another rationalization of the addiction. The only reason you're using porn is to receive the rush of dopamine your brain is addicted to. Once you're rid of the dopamine craving for porn, you'll have no need to search for any type of porn, safe or not. Whether withdrawal symptoms are caused by actual dopamine withdrawal or trigger mechanisms, accept them. There is no physical pain, and with the right frame of mind, the symptoms won't be a problem at all. Don't worry about withdrawal, you'll be fine. It's the association with feelings of being deprived of porn that's the problem. Instead of feeling sorry about it, acknowledge it. I know what this is, it's withdrawal from porn. 81 It's what porn users suffer from their entire lives, and it keeps them addicted. People who are free don't suffer these symptoms. It's one of the many evils of this addiction. I'm purging this evil from my brain. For the next 3 weeks, you'll experience slight trauma inside your body. But during those weeks, and for the rest of your life, something marvelous will be happening. You'll be ridding yourself of an awful disease. Enjoy the discomfort and craving. This is your redemption. Let these become moments of pleasure. You're starving the pornographic parasite living inside your stomach. You have to starve it for 3 weeks while it tries to trick you into feeding it with porn in order to stay alive. Within those 3 weeks, you'll be miserable at times. You'll be caught off guard. You'll stumble upon a porn website or see a pornographic advertisement and forget that you've quit for a moment. Be prepared for these encounters in advance. Whenever you are tempted, remember, it's only there because your brain is craving dopamine. It's a mechanical response to overstimulation. It means nothing. There are no malfunctions, stresses, or anything jeopardizing your health. In fact, you're healing. Resist the temptation and deal another mortal blow to your addiction. Don't try to forget about porn. This is another mistake made by people trying to quit using the willpower method. They try to get through each day hoping they'll eventually just forget about porn entirely. Have you ever had trouble sleeping and tried to concentrate on falling asleep? The more you worry about not being able to fall asleep, the harder it becomes to actually sleep. This situation is similar. You won't be able to forget about it. There are laptops and smartphones everywhere. You'll have constant reminders, but that's okay. You have no need to forget. Nothing bad is happening. Instead, something wonderful is happening. You're healing. Even if you're thinking about porn 1,000 times a day, savor each moment and remind yourself of how wonderful it is to be free. Remind yourself of the joy you feel for not having to torture yourself anymore. As said previously, you'll find that withdrawal symptoms become moments of pleasure. With the right mindset, you'll be surprised how easy it is to quit porn. Don't doubt your decision to quit. Once you start to doubt, you'll pity yourself. If this happens, use that moment of pity and convert it into a confidence boost. If withdrawal is causing you depression, remind yourself, that's what porn was doing to you. If a friend forwards you a porn website link, take pride in saying, I am happy to say I don't need that anymore. This will hurt them, but when they see it isn't bothering you, they'll be thinking about joining you. Remember, you have incredibly powerful reasons for quitting porn in the first place. Remind yourself of the costs and ask yourself if you really want to risk the malfunction of your body, mind, and future any longer. Be mindful of the addiction's efforts to rationalize illogical reasons to justify itself, and above all, remember that the feelings of withdrawal are only temporary. With each moment, you are closer to your goal. Don't believe that you'll have to spend the rest of your life resisting and reversing triggers. Don't believe that you'll have to go through your life pretending like you don't need porn. Remember, the optimist sees the glass 82 as half full and the pessimist sees it as half empty. In the case of pornography, the bottle is empty, but the addict sees it as full. There are no advantages to using internet porn. It's the porn addict who has been brainwashed. Once you start telling yourself that you don't need to orgasm using porn, in a very short time you won't even need to say it. You'll see the truth yourself. 83 Chapter 25 Just one little peek. This is the undoing of many using the willpower method. They'll go through 3 or 4 days and then decide to have just one little peek to satisfy the craving. They don't realize the devastating effect this has on their morale. The first peek at porn was never as enjoyable as sex with a real person, but it did provide a shot of dopamine. Not knowing the dangers of porn addiction, it didn't cross your mind that because your very first porn session wasn't enjoyable, you were going to become addicted. Enjoyment of orgasm wasn't the reason you became addicted to porn. If porn users were using porn for the orgasm alone, they'd never watch another video. The real reason why you needed porn was to silence the cravings for dopamine, if only for an hour or two. For those trying to quit using willpower, how precious just one little peek must be after starving themselves for 4 days. Your conscious mind is unaware, but the fix your body received is communicated to your subconscious, and all your preparation to quit will be undermined. There'll be a little voice at the back of your mind saying, in spite of all logic, porn is precious, and that you want another peek. Just one little peek has 2 damaging effects. 1, it keeps the craving alive in your body. 2, it strengthens your brainwashing by making porn a forbidden fruit worth compromising your progress for. Porn is a mousetrap without the cheese. Using willpower, you have to convince yourself not to grab the cheese, but as you've learned with this method, it's actually poison. You don't need to avoid it or fear it. You know enough not to eat it. Remember, just one little peek is how people get into the addiction in the first place. 84 Chapter 26 Will it be harder for me to quit? Each person is unique and situated differently in life, so inevitably will find the experience of quitting porn different from someone else. Each of us has our own character, career, personal circumstances, schedule, goals, living situation, relationships, etc. As discussed earlier, the dopamine withdrawals, while certainly a factor, are not the main reason why quitting porn is difficult. As long as the brainwashing and ingrained false beliefs about porn and sexual gratification are removed, quitting doesn't need to be overly difficult for anyone. Persons with stressful jobs and careers may find it more difficult to go through the dopamine withdrawal phase because they've wired their brains to be completely dependent on porn for stress relief. After a hard day at work, stress could appear to be momentarily relieved by porn. When this becomes habitual behavior, the porn session becomes incorrectly associated with the relief attained, and the porn user's brain will be taught to remember that porn is a stress reliever. Feeling stressed will become a trigger for porn cravings, and porn will become very precious to the porn user, even more so when they try to quit using the willpower method and start to experience withdrawal symptoms. This experience also applies to a porn user on a porn diet or a porn user who does not have the bodily stamina to use porn as much as their brain craves it. Extended periods of abstinence from porn makes the user feel miserable because they believe they are being deprived of a real stress-relieving activity. The sense of loss is greatly increased as time goes on. However, if you can first remove the brainwashing and self-pity which incorrectly attributes value to porn addiction, you can find stress relief in other ways and go on enjoying your life even while the body is craving the dopamine neurotransmitters, because you know it's all an illusion. A common situation for many is boredom combined with periods of stress. Typical examples are students, single parents, and shift workers. People in these situations can face periods of increased stress, but also periods of extended monotony. During an attempt to stop on the willpower method, these people have long periods of time to feel sorry for themselves about the loss of their porn addiction, which is their normal way of relieving stress. This self-pity and feeling of being deprived can increase feelings of depression. Again, this is easily overcome if your frame of mind is correct. During the first few weeks of withdrawal symptoms, don't worry about being continually reminded of your porn addiction by your brain. Every time, Trust your decision to quit this horrible addiction and rejoice that you're no longer a porn user. If you have a positive frame of mind, you'll automatically turn the addicted brain's cravings for dopamine into moments of pleasure. Any porn user, regardless of age, sex, intelligence, strength, or profession, can find it easy and enjoyable to quit porn, provided you follow all the instructions. 85 Chapter 27 Primary Reasons for Failure. There are two primary reasons for failure. The first is the influence of an external stimulus, a TV commercial, an online news article, random internet browsing, YouTube videos, etc. At a weak moment, you might be reminded of sexual gratification. This can also happen during social events if the addict observes others demonstrating intimacy. Desiring sexual gratification is natural and good. The problem is, through habitual behavior, the porn user has responded to desire for sexual gratification by using porn. Over time, the brain builds memories which associate desire for sex with the dopamine release of porn. Now, the poor porn user's brain triggers porn cravings whenever they actually desire intimacy and sexual gratification. The porn user has completely confused the difference between the propagative and amative elements of intimacy and sex. Everything has been combined and channeled into one collective craving for porn. If the craving really was for sex, then going in front of a screen to watch 2D images makes absolutely no sense. The way to deal with this craving is the same as what we've already discussed. Knowing now that your brain has been programmed by your habitual behavior to mistake the desire for real intimacy and sex with cravings for porn, you must remind yourself of this fact and believe it. There's no such thing as just one little peak. Furthermore, rejoice in the fact that you've broken the chain of mental slavery and only great things are in your future. The second reason why people fail in their attempts to quit porn is because of the normal ups, downs, and daily stresses of life. This is why we must make a commitment to quit porn, regardless of the daily circumstances and variability of life experience. Make it clear in your mind before you start, whether there are good or bad days, you've decided to be free. It rains on both the Pope and the murderer. Life is relative and you cannot have ups without downs. Another issue with trying to quit porn using the willpower method is that as soon as the user has a bad day, since they already feel like they are sacrificing something they value, they will be overwhelmed. They signed up for a life without their stress relief mechanism and pleasurable substitute for sexual gratification, not for these new hardships that life has given them. They won't take responsibility for dealing with these new struggles every living person must face from time to time, and they'll engage in new porn sessions, feeling victimized and vindicated by the hardships of life. It was too much for me and I gave in. The non-porn user is better equipped to handle daily stresses and strains, not only physically, but mentally, due to still having the full capacity of their brain's dopamine receptors. While life can sometimes be stressful, there are also moments of relief and joy during those times. The porn user is unable to notice these little moments of peace due to their tolerance for dopamine being so high due to constant dopamine flooding. 86 If you have a bad day during the withdrawal period, remind yourself that bad days existed before you were addicted and after you became addicted. You didn't need porn to handle life before you became addicted, and you don't need it now or you wouldn't have decided to stop. Instead of feeling sorry for yourself and using normal daily stress to rationalize your addiction, be self-aware. Today hasn't gone well, but porn won't cure it. Tomorrow will be better as long as I stay the course, and if I don't, it will be exponentially worse. I've also got a marvelous bonus: I've kicked that awful addiction. When you're using porn, you have to block its negative side effects from your mind and rationalize them. When you're having life's inevitable troubles, you want porn, but are you happy and cheerful after using it? Of course not. If work stresses you out, you think, at times like this I would have had a porn session. True, but the important thing that's forgotten is porn didn't solve the problem. In fact, it only made it worse. Instead of only having the problem at work, you also made yourself less able to handle it. Feeling deprived of porn is a useless endeavor. You're creating an impossible situation for yourself. You're making yourself miserable because you can't masturbate to porn, yet you'll be even more miserable if you do. You know you've made the correct decision to quit porn forever, so don't punish yourself by doubting your decision. Remember, a positive mental approach is essential, always. 87 Chapter 28 Substitutes. Many porn users attempt to decrease their dependency on porn by resorting to substitutes. Substitutes include softcore porn magazines, static internet images instead of videos, porn diets, etc. But you shouldn't bother trying to use any substitutes, because it only makes quitting harder for you. This addiction is not about real sexual gratification. The natural, innocent desire for sexual gratification and intimacy has been corrupted by compulsive porn usage, making your brain believe desire for sex is craving for porn. If you are tempted to use a substitute for porn, it will only prolong the duration of your dependency on porn and make quitting more difficult. Resorting to using substitutes simply means that you need porn to fill the void. It's like giving in to a child's tantrum. The child will continue to throw tantrums as long as you continue to give them what they want every time they do. As long as you keep giving in to cravings for porn, the addiction cycle will continue, regardless of you are using substitutes or not. Anyway, using substitutes won't even relieve your cravings because, as we discussed earlier, addiction is about novelty and getting more and more, not less and less. See your cravings for porn as the dying gasps of an evil monster. Internet porn creates the void, it doesn't fill it. The quicker you teach your brain you don't need to watch, the sooner you'll be free. Don't believe that you can help yourself by using anything that resembles porn, such as men's magazines, movies, novels, and YouTube videos. This isn't being closed-minded, it's being realistic. The differences between natural desires for sexual gratification and artificially created cravings for porn are dissolved in the mind of the porn addict. The porn addict must restore the natural order and be able to again distinguish between porn and sexual intimacy. Until then, normal desires for sex and intimacy will be interpreted for porn cravings, and what could normally be viewed as sexual or romantic, will only strengthen the addiction to porn. If you don't fully understand the porn trap, then a porn diet or the use softcore substitutes may sound logical. This logic is based on the belief that when you attempt to quit porn, you must defeat two enemies, the habit and the withdrawal symptoms. If you have two enemies to defeat, conventional wisdom tells you to fight them one at a time, not simultaneously. When translated for quitting porn addiction, it appears to make sense that the porn user could try to reduce porn use first to lessen the strength of the habit. Once the habit is weakened, the withdrawal symptoms will also be easier to cope with during the quitting phase. This sounds logical, but is based on incorrect information. Porn is not a simple habit but a dopamine addiction. To quit, you need to kill the addiction in your body and brain as quickly as possible. All substitution techniques do is keep the addiction alive, continue the brainwashing, and increase the value of porn as perceived by your brain. 88 Using substitutes is ineffective because this method completely ignores the main reason why porn users find it difficult to quit: brainwashing. Do you need a substitute for sickness after the sickness is over? Of course not. By saying you need a substitute for porn, you're really saying that you believe you're making a sacrifice by quitting. The depression associated with quitting by using the willpower method is caused by the fact that the user believes they're making a sacrifice. All you'll be doing is substituting one problem for a different form of the same problem. 89 Chapter 29 Should I avoid tempting situations? So far, this book has given you instructions. There are sound, practical reasons for these instructions and they are backed up by thousands of case studies. But on the question of whether or not to try and avoid temptation, stress, or triggering situations, each porn user must decide for themselves. Here are a few helpful suggestions to assist you through this process. In your heart and mind, you know where you tend to encounter triggering situations. You know which websites tend to have triggering content and which don't. You know when you tend to get porn cravings. You know yourself more than anyone else does. In the end, it comes down to mindset. Encountering a triggering advertisement while honestly minding your own business online is one thing. Purposefully or absent-mindedly browsing websites where you know you're probably going to encounter triggering content is another. If you find yourself secretly trying to find porn without intentionally looking for it, it's probably because you're wondering, how can I survive without porn? This fear isn't caused by withdrawal pangs, but it is psychological fear of dependency, a belief of being unable to survive life without sexual gratification and orgasms. Fear of the unknown is natural, but this fear is irrational, created by the addiction. You weren't afraid of a future without sexual gratification and orgasms before you became addicted to porn, but during the course of the addiction, you became brainwashed into believing that you need it and life is misery without it. This explains why many strong-willed porn users have never seriously attempted to quit or can only survive a few days when they do. If the porn user has not dealt with the brainwashing caused by porn addiction and societal beliefs which constantly glorify sex above all else, the decision to quit porn can cause intense panic. This panic is stressful, and since the porn user has worked hard to wire porn as a response to stress, even just thinking of quitting porn can cause them to binge instead. Don't worry, the panic is just psychological. The fear is caused by the addiction and it will dissolve as the addiction is destroyed. The beautiful truth is that you have nothing to fear, even when still addicted. Don't panic. Focus on the truth about porn. Let the truth set you free and take the step with full commitment. The bottom line is, life lived in freedom does not include fearfully avoiding certain websites and content for the rest of your life because you can't control yourself. The only way you will trap yourself into a life of fear, 90 relying on website blockers and unable to trust yourself, is if you have not dealt with the brainwashing and false beliefs associated with porn and porn addiction. If you've prepared yourself, followed the instructions in this book, and made your decision, you have nothing to worry about. Go out and enjoy yourself straight away. You don't need porn or the propagative side of sex even while you're addicted to porn. Go out and rejoice in the fact that you don't have to have sex or propagative sex to be happy. A few weeks lived in freedom will quickly prove the beautiful truth that life is so much better without the pressures of trying to decide which situations are appropriate and which are not. Guard yourself while you must, keeping your heart and mind clean while you persevere through the initial withdrawal symptoms. But after you are free, don't live as a slave to your triggers. 91 Chapter 30 The moment of revelation. Within 3 weeks after quitting, ex-porn users experience the moment of revelation. The sky appears to become brighter and the brainwashing shatters. Instead of telling yourself you don't need to watch porn, you'll realize the last thread is broken and you can enjoy the rest of your life without ever needing it again. The more you were addicted, the more marvelous this moment is, and it lasts a lifetime. While there are many joys in life, the joy of not having to watch porn anymore is different. Porn users trying to quit using willpower won't normally experience this moment because, although they're glad to be ex-porn users, they continue moving through life believing they're making a sacrifice. Many readers, before they even reach the end of this book, have said, "You needn't say another word. I can see it all so clearly, I'll know I'll never need porn again." Based on feedback received, this happens frequently. If you follow all the instructions and understand the psychology of porn addiction as it is described in this book, it should be happening to you too. While we say that it takes around 3 weeks for an ex-porn user to get completely free, we shouldn't get too caught up in timelines like these. It's possible that the period of 3 weeks will become implanted in people's minds, and those who haven't dealt with porn's brainwashing will be thinking they'll have to suffer for 3 weeks before being magically reborn. It is this type of porn user who tends to think, if I can survive for 3 weeks, I can expect a real boost at the end of that period. However, this is not an exact science, because everyone is unique and has lived unique experiences. Porn users may experience 5 days of smooth sailing and followed by 2 weeks of withdrawal symptoms. Remember what we discussed in the very beginning of this book about doctors diagnosing porn users with depression when the root cause is actually porn addiction. The symptoms of porn withdrawal are shared between many root causes. After quitting, what you attribute to porn withdrawal may have nothing to do with addiction because there are many other factors involved in our day-to-day lives. Porn users who take timelines and revelation moments too seriously, could sit around waiting for something to happen but it never does. This is what happens to the vast majority of those who try to quit using the willpower method. People often ask about the significance of 3 weeks. Is it a period drawn out of the blue? No. While it isn't a definite date, it reflects an accumulation of porn user feedback from over the years. About 3 weeks after quitting, the ex-porn user ceases to keep the addiction as the main occupation of their mind. Most ex-porn users experience revelation around this period, generally in stressful or social situations that at one point weren't able to be coped with or enjoyable without porn. They realize that not only are they enjoying life's ups 92 and downs more, but the thought of using porn doesn't even occur to them anymore. From that point it's usually plain sailing. That's when you know you're free. It's the experience of many others attempting to quit using the willpower method, that around the 3-week period, most serious attempts to quit will fail. What usually happens is that after about 3 weeks, willpower will start to fade. The porn user who hasn't really decided to quit porn but is trying to force themselves to quit in order to reach a magical transformation deadline, will feel so deprived and stressed after 3 weeks that they gladly open an internet browser as soon as they encounter a minor problem in life. Another downside in aiming for a specific day, be it 3 weeks or 90 days, is that once you reach it, you might think you need to prove your freedom to yourself. You open the browser to visit a porn site and masturbate. It feels weird, proving you're free, but in the process of testing yourself, you start the dopamine feedback loop all over again. As soon as you finish the deed, the dopamine starts to leave your body. The rush may have felt great because you've given your body a chance to heal over the last few weeks. Your brain says, you have nothing to lose, you aren't addicted, you did well abstaining for the last few weeks, let's have another one. The next time you experience a craving, you say to yourself, I got myself free, I can get myself free again if it gets too bad, so there's no harm in having another one. Back to square one. Enjoy your moment of revelation when it comes, but don't sit around waiting for it. Start enjoying your life immediately. You've cut off the supply of oxygen to your addiction, don't give it another chance to breathe. No force on earth can prevent you from being free except you. Don't feel sorry for yourself, sitting around waiting for the magical no-FAP moment to make you a god, impervious to all cravings. Go enjoy life, cope with it right from the start. That way, you'll soon experience the moments of recognizing your freedom with the fullest joy possible. 93 Chapter 31 The moment of truth. Over the previous 90 pages, we have discussed in great detail the mindset, psychology, and reasoning within the mind of the porn addict. We've shown why the porn user feels trapped, why he has difficulty quitting, and why he is engaged in an eternal tug of war, simultaneously hating porn but still needing it. We also discussed the right and wrong methods to utilize in order to quit porn once and for all. We explained how to avoid the major pitfalls and which mindset will help you achieve success. If you haven't already, the time has come. Put your cards on the table and go all in. Before you do so, check on the 2 essentials. 1. Are you certain of success? 2. Do you doubt your ability to quit? If you have any doubts, reread the book first. Remember that you never decided to fall into the porn trap, but the trap is designed to enslave you for life. In order to escape, you need to make the intentional decision to quit. The only reason you've read this book up to this point is because you are desperate to escape this addiction. Make that positive decision to escape now. Make a solemn vow that when you've used porn for the last time, no matter what happens next, you'll never search for porn again. Perhaps you're worried that you've made this vow several times in the past and are still failing, or that you'll have to go through awful trauma. Have no fear, the worst thing that can happen is that you notice that the brainwashing is still holding you back, and you need to read this book again. You have nothing to lose by making the decision to quit porn for life. But don't even think about failure. The beautiful truth is that it's not only easy to quit porn addiction, but you can actually enjoy the process. Make the solemn vow now and mean it. If you have a collection of porn pictures, magazines, or videos, delete or throw them in the trash right now. If you have bookmarks in your internet browser with porn sites, delete them all now. Then delete them out of the recycle bin as well. Don't clean up your bedroom and computer with a feeling of, I must never visit another porn website again, or, I'm not allowed to visit another porn site, but instead, do it while rejoicing in your new freedom. Like, isn't it great? I'm free. I'm no longer a slave to porn. I don't ever have to visit these filthy sites in my life 94 again. Keep the spirit of joy and rejoicing in your mind from now on whenever cravings, doubts, stresses, or any other trigger manifests. From now on, if you feel like you want to peek at porn over the next few days, your brain has a simple choice. You know that feeling for what it actually is, an empty, insecure feeling started by the very first time you watched porn and perpetuated by each subsequent porn session. You don't need to second guess, just say to yourself, I'm so glad I'm free from that horrible addiction. In order to achieve freedom from porn addiction, you must vow to quit and really mean it. If you don't really mean it, you're saying, I never want to watch porn again, but you plan on spending the rest of your life saying I'd love to watch porn again. That's what those trying to quit using the willpower method do. No wonder they feel so miserable. They can make it far with their strong willpower, but they end up feeling sorry for themselves and looking for every excuse to rationalize another porn session. No wonder so few of them succeed and even fewer feel completely free. Doubting your decision to quit will sabotage your escape to freedom. Never doubt your decision. You know it's the correct one. If you begin to doubt your decision, you put yourself in a no-win situation, miserably craving a porn session but unable to have one. No matter what method you use, what are you trying to achieve when quitting porn? The goal is to never watch porn again, right? It seems obvious, but then why do so many ex-porn users go through the rest of their lives feeling deprived? They didn't deal with the brainwashing, they didn't make a vow to quit no matter what, and they doubt whatever decisions they made. What's the difference between porn users and non-porn users? Non-porn users have no need or desire to watch porn. They don't crave it, and they don't need to exercise willpower to abstain from watching it. That's what you're trying to achieve, and it's completely within your power to do so. You don't have to wait. It happened the moment you closed your internet browser after your last porn session. You're already a happy non-porn user. You haven't given up anything. On the contrary, you've cured yourself from an awful disease and escaped from a sinister prison. As days pass and your health improves, the highs will appear higher and the lows less low than when you were a user. Whenever you think about porn, remember to say, this is fantastic. I never have to look at porn ever again, I'm free. 95 Chapter 32 A final encouragement. Remember, if given the chance to go back to the time before they ever watched porn, every porn addict would take it. Remember, there's no such thing as just one peak. All it will do is start the addiction cycle all over again. If you follow the instructions in this book, quitting porn is easy. But we must respect the addiction because we cannot control it. Even when you are free for years, don't become too casual in your interactions with pornographic content. Remember the pain this addiction has caused you. Rejoice in your freedom. Those who value their freedom fight to keep it. Remember your instructions. 1. You can count the benefits and costs of porn addiction at any time, and the overwhelming conclusion is always, quit. Nothing will ever change that. It's always been that way and always will be. Having made what you know to be the correct decision, don't torture yourself by doubting. Remember Pascal's wager, by choosing to be free from porn, you having nothing to lose, you have much to gain, and the odds are in your favor. 2. By quitting porn, you lose nothing. By using porn, you are only temporarily relieving the same symptoms that porn addiction creates. It's an endless cycle. The only way to end it is to quit. There is no rational reason to use porn. There is no genuine pleasure or enjoyment in porn. It's just an illusion, like wearing uncomfortable shoes all day so that you can feel the relief of taking them off. 3. Don't try to use a substitute for porn, cut down, or go on a porn diet, using porn on a schedule. These techniques are unhelpful and only make your goal of quitting more difficult to achieve because they make you feel like you're sacrificing something while at the same time elevating porn's value in your subconscious. 4. Make a solemn vow that you'll never search for porn again. Vow you'll never look for static pictures, erotic graphics, videos, or anything that contains supernormal stimuli. Never doubt your vow. You made it because you're ready to quit porn for life. 5. Don't change your life trying to avoid porn or trigger situations. Don't worry if you're thinking about porn regularly. Whenever you do, whether it be today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, just say, "I'm so glad I never have to watch porn again." Don't avoid plays, movies, or magazines. Don't change your lifestyle out of fear for encountering porn while minding your own business. 96.6. Don't wait for a moment of revelation to come. Start living your life immediately. Enjoying the highs and cope with the lows. You'll find all your withdrawals and brainwashing vanishing in no time. 97. Chapter 33. Should I tell my significant other? Should I tell my wife, girlfriend, or partner about my addiction? Usually the intention in telling them is to alleviate guilt, come clean, and possibly recruit their assistance in quitting. If you've already been failing to quit using the willpower method and have already told your partner, tell them about your new approach and allow them to educate themselves by reading the book. They'll be able to assist and motivate you during the withdrawal period and are a stronghold when the little monster attempts to trip you up. If you've only just become aware of the existence of the porn trap and haven't attempted quitting in the past, first use this method before telling them. As explained previously, this should be an enjoyable experience. However, if you're finding it difficult, request their assistance. Be open and vulnerable with your partner and it will strengthen your relationship. If you're quitting porn successfully by using the method in this book, there isn't much reason to let your partner know. If it wasn't an issue in the past, let it die. However, your partner might wonder why you're looking, feeling, and performing better. 98. Chapter 34. My partner is quitting porn. Pornography is a perverse destroyer of relationships, and while quitting can be done instantly, healing takes time. Many porn users, due to irrational beliefs spawned from their addiction, take out their anger on their partners and loved ones. These behaviors may manifest as gaslighting, lying, and manipulation. This isn't all porn users, but these behaviors become increasingly common in later stages of the addiction. While these behaviors may have manifested from the underlying porn addiction, it's important to educate yourself about them, and if recognized, consider seeing a therapist specializing in sexual addictions. If your partner is within the withdrawal period, assume they're suffering whether they are or not. Don't attempt to minimize their suffering by telling them porn is just a habit and they are weak for failing to quit. Instead, continue telling them how proud you are, how much better they're looking, how much sweeter it is to be with them, and how much more agreeable they are in general. It's particularly important to do this when a user makes an attempt to quit. The euphoria of the attempt and the praise they get from peers can help them along. Because they're not talking about porn, you may think they've forgotten and don't want you to remind them. Usually, the complete opposite is the case, especially with the willpower method. The ex-porn user tends to be obsessed with nothing else but porn. Don't be frightened to bring the subject up and let them know they have your support. They'll tell you if they don't want to be reminded. If you can, try to relieve your addicted partner of additional stresses and pressures during the withdrawal period. During this phase, life will appear dull and uninteresting for them, so making their lives appear more interesting and enjoyable will help greatly. One of the tricks an addict will use when trying to quit using the willpower method is inducing tantrums. They're hoping to create a situation that will rationalize using porn to get relief. Once achieved, the porn user doesn't have to face the shame of giving up. They were put in an adverse situation which forced them to use porn to cope. If the porn user tries to pull this trick, don't encourage them to watch porn to relax. Instead say, if this is what porn does to you, thank goodness you'll soon be free. How marvelous that you had the courage to quit. Remember, if your partner is trying to quit porn, there are two healing parties within the recovery journey. When your partner is quitting porn, it's important to have your own support network, self-care routines, and boundaries. This process doesn't happen overnight, requiring trust, communication, and accountability. 99 Chapter 35 Help others leave the sinking ship first. Study the contents of this book and practice this method for yourself. Don't threaten people with scare tactics by telling them they're ruining their health and playing with fire. These methods are ineffective. Porn users don't continue viewing porn because they enjoy it or because they want to. They do it because they're dependent on it. They think it relaxes them, gives them courage or confidence, pleasure, and because they feel that life will never be enjoyable without sex, at least their version of it. If you try to force a user to stop, they will get defensive and your message, as true as it might be, will be pointless to them. This may turn them into a secret user and porn will become even more precious in their mind. Concentrate on espousing the benefits of becoming free from the addiction. Get them to visit websites like Your Brain on Porn and the various popular porn addiction forums. Let the user understand how other porn users also believed they were hooked for life and how much better life is as a non-user. Once they believe they can quit as well, their mind will start to open up. Then start explaining the delusions caused by porn addiction and the dopamine withdrawal symptoms. Not only is the addiction not giving them a boost, they're destroying their confidence and making themselves tired and irritable. Once this is understood, they will be ready to read this book themselves. 100 Chapter 36 Help end this scandal. Internet porn is one of the dangers in a free society, taking advantage of personal freedoms. Surely the very basis of civilization, the reason why the human species has advanced so far, is because we're capable of communicating our knowledge and experiences not only to each other, but to future generations. Even animals find it necessary to warn their offspring of the pitfalls of life. The producers of porn do not have the prosperity of the human race in mind, especially now as addiction to internet porn is becoming more widely studied. In the initial stages, people genuinely believed that porn educated people on intimacy, but authorities on the subject know this is a fallacy. Watch any porn site today. They make no claims about education. The hypocrisy is incredible. As a society we condemn school bullying and objectification of the human body. Compared with internet porn, these problems are minor. The numbers of those addicted to porn climb to new heights each year. More and more people are spending their quality time with 2D imaginary and static pixels at the expense of their health, virility, and energy. Porn is one of the biggest killers in relationships. Tens of thousands of lives are ruined every year because they get addicted. Internet porn producers don't advertise in mainstream publications because they don't need to. Our biological urges lead us to the thresholds of their well-stocked stores. They give out free samples like the local drug dealer. Some porn companies show the 18+ warning on the home page as the deterrent for underage porn users, but many don't even bother. Regardless, internet porn affects people of all ages. We warned you of the danger, it's your choice. But they don't take steps to verify age. That would discourage their customers. We can address this through education of the younger generation. If they can step around cigarettes and alcohol aisles at grocery shops, they can do the same with internet porn. We're already seeing societal shifts such as No Nut November becoming mainstream. The porn user doesn't have the choice any more than the heroin addict does. Porn users don't decide to become addicted, they're lured into a subtle trap. If they had the choice, the only porn users alive tomorrow morning would be adolescents just starting out, believing they could stop at any time if they wanted. Heroin addicts can register as patients and get methadone as well as proper medical treatment to assist in getting free. Try registering as a porn addict. If you go to your doctor for help, they'll either tell you, stop doing it so much, try moderation which you already know won't work, or will prescribe medication to address your depression. Worse is the advice that you should go find real sexual partners. Seriously. Do they not understand how many porn users use it behind their partners' backs? 101 Why do we allow this scandal to go on? Why doesn't our government execute an anti-porn addiction campaign? Why doesn't it tell us that internet porn is a drug and a poison? Why don't they require age verification by requesting a registered credit card and perhaps with a third party? H.G. Wells' The Time Machine describes an incident in the distant future where a man falls into a river. His companions merely sit around the bank like cattle, oblivious to his cries of desperation. Inhuman and disturbing, much like society's general apathy to the porn crisis. There is a wind of change of society. A snowball has begun rolling down the hill, and I hope this book will help turn it into an avalanche. You too can help by spreading the message. 102 Chapter 37 A New Beginning. This is the end of the book, but it's a new beginning for everyone rejoicing in the realization of their marvelous new freedom. From here, there is only more joy, more fulfillment, and more life to be lived. Never stop rejoicing, your freedom depends on it. If you lose your way, start doubting your decision, or just need to remind yourself of the truth about pornography addiction, come back to this little book and read it again. The world is full of conflicting truths, brainwashing, and cultural bias. If you base your decisions on the unstable emotions of pop culture or ever-shifting societal beliefs, you'll be led astray. Save yourself years of stress and heartache by searching for the truth in everything and basing your decisions only on that. Chances are, if you are determined to rid your life of porn addiction, you desire to improve your life in other ways as well. You can use the methods in this book to help yourself in any area you choose. Just follow the instructions as outlined, adapting them for any vice, obstacle, or situation as needed. You will find, as I have, that you can take control of your life and achieve whatever you set your mind on. I will close the book by saying thank you. If you've read this little book right up to the end, you're the type of person who loves their freedom and will work hard to claim it. Thank you for being who you are. We need more people like you. Thank you for not accepting things just as they are. As you gain momentum and attain positive life change for yourself, start taking others with you. The future is bright, as long as people like you are in it. 103 Chapter 38 Acknowledgements. I am continually inspired by the members of the Freedom Academy who delight in becoming their greatest selves. Every soul who passes through the doors of the Academy gives me motivation to put forth my best effort in everything I do. I am particularly indebted to Jason VN and Rokas for reviewing and editing this manuscript. Without their help, this work wouldn't have been completed. Finally, I'm grateful to you for reading this book. You're the cream de la cream, the very best. Many will never make it this far in their search for freedom. I'd wish you luck, but as you've come to learn, you don't need it. You know what to do. Vincent S.E. Vincent. He conquers, who conquers himself. Jack 104.